This is the weekly roundup on EAC News Channel. You look back at the past week in the Kingdom of Wonder. A very good evening to you. I'm Anthony Ellis, and we'll start with Monday. Prime Minister Hun Sen has instructed the Ministers of Economic and Ministry of Health to examine the possibility of lifting the obligation to wear a mask in public places in order to aid people's livelihoods and ease the cost of buying masks. EAC News reporter Deccan In has the story.
While speaking at the handover ceremony of 1,056,000 doses of COVID-19 AstraZeneca vaccines from Italy at the Peace Palace on Monday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that mandatory mask wearing has affected the lives of Cambodians in different ways, including by increasing daily costs since people have to spend extra finances on buying masks. He called on health technicians to look into not only physical health issues, but also economic, social, and psychological issues that may have stemmed from having to wear a mask all the time. The Prime Minister stressed that he wants the decision of whether to wear a mask or not in public to be the citizens' right to decide. He further stressed that lifting mask-wearing restrictions will help reduce some of the extra expenses. He further added that in order to promote the effective removal of the mask-wearing mandate, all citizens are urged to get vaccinated with at least 3 doses to ensure stronger immunity against COVID-19. And in this regard, he announced the national campaign for third-dose vaccinations. The Prime Minister said that after the Khmer New Year, there have been no more than 20 cases of COVID-19 found in Cambodia. And saying this, he thinks that it is possible now to lift mandatory mask-wearing restrictions. Cambodia has thus far recorded a total of more than 136,000 cases of COVID-19, of which more than 132,000 recovered and more than 3,000 people died. Deccan In, EAC News.
On Monday morning, over 1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine has been sent by Italy officially arrived at the Kingdom of Cambodia. The handover ceremony for the vaccines took place at the Peace Palace in Phnom Penh, under the presidency of the Prime Minister Hun Sen and the Italian ambassador to Cambodia. EAC News reporter Paul Kong has more.
During the handover ceremony, the Italian ambassador Lorenzo Galanti described Cambodia's COVID-19 vaccination campaign and fight against COVID-19 as a major success, and declared that Italy will continue to support Cambodia and its people. In turn, Prime Minister Hun Sen thanked the government and people of Italy for providing Cambodia with this support. The Prime Minister further added during his speech that the current vaccine stock in Cambodia has reached over 10 million doses. So he urged all Cambodians to go and get vaccinated with at least 3 doses of the vaccine to ensure better protection from the virus. Since COVID-19 began to spread in Cambodia, the royal government has prioritized vaccination, considering it is the first and the best strategy to fight against COVID-19. Currently, more than 93% of Cambodia's 16 million population has been fully vaccinated against COVID-19.
Even as most people in Cambodia have now received their 2 basic doses of COVID-19 vaccine, the royal government continues to urge citizens to get their 3rd and 4th doses in order to strengthen the local herd immunity. Sripokong, EAC News, Peace Palace, Phnom Penh.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has urged all citizens to get the 3rd dose of COVID-19 vaccine to further strengthen the collective immune system of the local community. He said that Cambodia currently has more than 10 million doses of vaccines left in stock, which can be given to all citizens in the country. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has the details.
Speaking at the Peace Palace in Phnom Penh during the handover ceremony of over 1 million AstraZeneca vaccines arriving from Italy on Monday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that citizens must receive a minimum of at least 3 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine in order to strengthen immunity against the virus and to make it safer and more feasible to lift mask-wearing restrictions.
ត្រូវតែមកកាន់ទីកន្លែងណាដែលមានកន្លែងចាក់វ៉ាក់សាំង គឺមកកាន់ទីកន្លែងមិនចាំបាច់ថាខ្លួននៅស្ទឹងត្រែងត្រូវតែចាក់នៅស្ទឹងត្រែងទេចាក់នៅភ្នំពេញឲ្យតែមានកន្លែងចាក់ឲ្យពេទ្យរបស់យើងគ្រប់ទីកន្លែងទាំងអស់គឺមានអ្នកទៅចាក់គឺត្រូវចាក់ជូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋរបស់យើងតែម្ដង
According to the Prime Minister, more than 6.6 million Cambodians have not yet received a third dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. On Sunday, 24th April, Prime Minister Hun Sen sent a special voice message in which he ordered the Ministry of Health and all relevant departments to launch a third dose vaccination campaign for people who are most at risk and also encouraged all citizens to participate in this campaign. Cambodia launched its national vaccination campaign on 10th February 2021, and as of 24th April 2022, approximately 14.1 million people have received their 2 base doses of the vaccine, while around 8.2 million people have received at least a third dose. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has expressed his commitment to working with all relevant partners, especially with China, to achieve and complete eradication of malaria in Cambodia. The kingdom has not recorded any deaths of malaria since 2018. EAC News reporter Darshana Gochan has more details.
Addressing the 50th anniversary of Artemisinin and the International Cooperation Forum to build a community of common health for mankind on Monday, 25th April, Prime Minister Hun Sen announced his support for all activities being implemented, as well as all cooperation being made to build a community of common health, especially in regard to the eradication of malaria through the use of artemisinin. He added that Cambodia in the Greater Mekong sub-region had more than 170,000 cases of malaria and nearly 1,000 deaths in the 1980s. Moving forward 40 years, in 2021, the number of malaria cases dropped to 3,959, and no deaths have been recorded in the last 4 years since 2018, even over the difficult course of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Prime Minister continued that Cambodia's success in malaria was due to the implementation of the National Malaria Eradication Strategy 2011 to 2025, formed by the Royal Government, which includes the 4 strategic goals of earlier diagnosis and treatment, providing treatment by proper use of artemisinin so as to avoid artemisinin resistance, prevention of malaria transmission through the use of mosquito nets, and the promotion of health education through the involvement of stakeholders, especially members of the public.
ប្រសិទ្ធភាពនៃការអនុវត្តយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រជាតិគឺការផ្សារភ្ជាប់ដោយភាពទន់ភ្លន់និងបត់បែនតាមយុទ្ធសាស្ត្រសកលនិងតំបន់ព្រមទាំងរៀនសូត្រដកស្រង់បទពិសោធន៍ពីគ្នាទៅវិញទៅមក
He further announced that Cambodia will continue to strengthen cooperation with all stakeholders, especially the People's Republic of China, through the Belt and Road Initiative, the Mekong-Lancang Cooperation, and China's South-South Cooperation Assistance Fund in order to fully eradicate malaria. Finally, Prime Minister Hun Sen called on all stakeholders to strengthen cooperation based on trust, people-centered partnerships, and multilateralism in order to achieve the global vision of malaria-free by 2025. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Emmanuel Macron comfortably defeated far-right rival Marine Le Pen on Sunday the 24th, heading off a political earthquake for Europe and acknowledging dissatisfaction with the first term and saying he would seek make amends.
His supporters erupted with joy as the result appeared on a giant screen at the Champ de Mars Park by the Eiffel Tower. Leaders in Berlin, Brussels, and London and beyond welcomed his defeat of the nationalist Eurosceptic Le Pen. With 97% of votes counted, Macron was on course for a solid 57.4% of the vote, Interior Ministry figures showed. But in his victory speech, he acknowledged that many had only voted for him only to keep Le Pen out, and he promised to address the sense of many French that their living standards are slipping. Many in this country voted for me not because they support my ideas, but to keep out those of the far right. I want to thank them and know I owe them a debt in the years to come, he said. No one in France will be left by the wayside, he said in a message that had already been spread by senior ministers during their rounds on French TV stations. 2 years of disruption by the pandemic and surging energy prices exacerbated by the Ukraine war catapulted economic issues to the fore of the campaign. The rising cost of the living has become an increasing strain for the poorest in the country. He needs to be closer to the people and to listen to them, digital sales worker Virginie, 51, said at the Macron rally. adding he needed to overcome a reputation for arrogance and soften a leadership style Macron himself called Jupiterian. Le Pen, who at one stage of the campaign had trailed Macron by just a few points in opinion polls, quickly admitted defeat, but she vowed to keep up the fight with parliamentary elections in June. "I will never abandon the French," she told supporters chanting Marine, Marine. Macron can expect little or no grace period in a country whose stark political divisions have been brought into the open by an election in which radical parties scored well. Many expect the street protests that marked part of his first term to erupt again as he presses on with pro-business reforms. Macron pointed to Le Pen's past admiration for Russia's Vladimir Putin as showing she could not be trusted on the world stage, while insisting she still harbored plans to pull France out of the European Union, something she denies.
Former US President Donald Trump said it was unacceptable that the Russian President Vladimir Putin was using the Trump called the N-word, the word nuclear, so often.
In a clip from the interview with British television presenter Piers Morgan on April 11th at the Mar-a-Lago resort, Trump said this was a no-no, adding to Putin's nuclear threats, "Everybody is so afraid, so afraid, so afraid. And as they're afraid, he uses it more and more. That's why he's doing the kind of things he's doing right now." Answering the question of what he would do if he was in Biden's shoes, Trump said he would verbally threaten Putin with the US's military power.
So what would you do right now in Ukraine if you were the president?
Putin uses the N-word. I call it the N-word. He uses the N-word, the nuclear word, all the time. That's a no-no. You're not supposed to do that. He uses it on a daily basis. And everybody's so afraid, so afraid, so afraid. And as they're afraid, he uses it more and more. That's why he's doing the kind of things he's doing. He's doing them because he thinks nobody's going to ever attack us because they're all stupid and they're afraid to talk about it.
I totally agree with you.
Okay?
So what would you do
and
about
instead of, excuse me, it's a little complicated.
I'm sorry.
Instead of, kowtowing, instead of Biden saying, "Oh, he's got nuclear weapons." He keeps saying he's got we have better weapons. We have the greatest submarine power in history.
So what would you say and do?
I would say we have far more than you do, far more powerful than you, and you can't use that word ever again. You cannot use the nuclear word ever again. And if you do, we're going to have problems.
During the military buildup preceding the invasion of Ukraine, Trump praised Putin as a genius. Once the attack had commenced, he condemned it as appalling. Trump has previously addressed his past praise, saying he was correct that Putin was smart because he was outfoxing world leaders and NATO. During his time in office, Trump dogged criticisms that he was too friendly toward Moscow. The U.S. intelligence community found that Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election to boost his chances of winning the White House. Special counsel Robert Mueller's report determined Trump's campaign had numerous contacts with Russian officials, but that there was not enough evidence to establish a criminal conspiracy.
The Prime Minister Hun Sen has announced that the outdoor mask mandate has been lifted throughout the country from today, Tuesday the 26th of April, leaving members of the public to decide whether to wear masks or not by themselves. EAC News reporter Dashan Nguyen has the story.
In a special audio message released on Tuesday, 26 April 2022, the Prime Minister informed all members of the public across the country that after the Minister of Economy and the Minister of Health held a meeting on whether it was feasible to lift the mask mandate in Cambodia, the government has concluded that it is safe to stop wearing masks in outdoor public places. However, everyone must still wear masks in closed indoor places such as buildings, cinemas, and meeting halls. The Prime Minister said that this is to help reduce the extra costs of having to buy masks, which is a huge extra expense for many. At the same time, he encourages people to continue monitoring their own health and to do rapid tests when in doubt. He further ordered the Ministry of Health and other relevant institutions to continue monitoring the situation and be ready to respond quickly after the mask mandate is lifted.
ខ្ញុំប្រកាសណាខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាការដកម៉ាស់ចេញនឹងបង្កើតបរិយាកាសសប្បាយរីករាយសម្រាប់បងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋរបស់យើងហើយក៏ទាំងចូលរួមចំណែកទៅលើការសន្សំសំចៃក្នុងការប្រើប្រាស់ដោយផ្ទេរការចំណាយពីការប្រើប្រាស់ទិញម៉ាស់មកពាក់បង្វែរទៅជាការទិញម្ហូបអាហារទិញសម្លៀកបំពាក់ឲ្យកូនចៅនិងទុក សន្សំប្រាក់កាសនោះដើម្បីប្រើប្រាស់ទៅលើគោលដៅផ្សេង
One day prior, during the handover ceremony of over 1 million vaccines sent by Italy on Monday, 25th April 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen had stated his intention to lift the outdoor mask mandate to aid people's livelihoods and reduce spending on masks. During this time, he also announced the national third dose vaccination campaign. Prime Minister Hun Sen has said that in order to promote the effective removal of mask wearing in outdoor places, all citizens are urged to get at least their third dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Darshana Gochan, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
On the morning of Tuesday, the 26th of April, Prime Minister Hun Sen announced that the outdoor mask mandate has been lifted across Cambodia, meaning that the decision to wear a mask in public outdoor settings is now up to an individual's own choice. EAC News sent out a team to interview some people on the streets of Phnom Penh to see how they were feeling about these news. Many have expressed their happiness over the removal of the mask mandate, saying that they're feeling relieved because this is a help to reduce the mass cost of buying masks and also reduce the worries about accidentally violating health measures when not wearing a mask outside. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin will tell you more about it.
People are happy that the government has lifted the outdoor mask mandate, but some say that wearing masks has become their habit. On Tuesday, 26th of April, Prime Minister Hun Sen announced through a special voice message that mask wearing in outdoor public spaces will no longer be mandatory, so citizens could choose themselves whether they prefer to wear a mask or not while outdoors. This decision came after the Minister of Economy and the Minister of Health held a meeting on Monday, 25th of April, to deliberate whether it was feasible and safe to lift the mask mandate.
ខ្ញុំប្រកាសណាខ្ញុំសង្ឃឹមថាការដកម៉ាស់ចេញនឹងបង្កើតបរិយាកាសសប្បាយរីករាយសម្រាប់បងប្អូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋរបស់យើងហើយក៏ទាំងចូលរួមចំណែកទៅលើការសន្សំសំចៃក្នុងការប្រើប្រាស់ដោយផ្ទេរការចំណាយពីការប្រើប្រាស់ទិញម៉ាស់មកពាក់បង្វែរទៅជាការទិញម្ហូបអាហារទិញសម្លៀកបំពាក់ឲ្យកូនចៅនិងទុកសន្សំប្រាក់កាសនោះដើម្បីប្រើប្រាស់ទៅលើគោលដៅផ្សេង
After this announcement was made, many people living in Phnom Penh have expressed their happiness and relief because it is easier to breathe without a mask. The cost of buying masks will be reduced, and because people will no longer have to worry about being accused of violating health measures when not wearing masks outdoor.
When I heard the news, I was happy because it means I do not have to spend as much money buying masks every day. Every month, I'm also reduced because when I wear a mask, it is hard to breathe because I have a nose problem. I think it is a good thing because work related to tourists will increase. We'll go out for a lot because they know that they do not have to wear a mask outside anymore. So there are less problems, reduce costs, and we'll also be less afraid about going anywhere they want.
We're really happy because now it seems we have freedom to hang out with each other. And we can go out a lot since people are more resistant to the disease, which is really good. I'm happy. We had to buy masks a lot and spend a lot of money. Also because masks cannot be washed and reused, so we have to change masks often every day. And because there are many members in our house, it costs a lot. If we no longer have to wear masks, then we can reduce a lot.
In the midst of this happy atmosphere, there are, however, some people who say that mask wearing has now become a part of their daily habits.
We protect our health with masks because we do not know who is infected with COVID-19, so I always wear masks to be protected. And sellers like me, when people from a distance see us not wearing masks, they do not dare to buy from us. We have to buy a lot of masks. It cannot be counted because in one day I have to change 2 to 3 times regularly. Also, my children, grandchildren, son-in-law, they are still using masks every day, even though everyone has been vaccinated 4 times. We still use masks regularly.
Most of the people that EAC News team interviewed seem unconcerned about the recurrence of COVID-19, believing in the government measures in place and trusting the level of local herd immunity achieved, which they see as being further strengthened by the administration of booster vaccine doses.
Concerns about re-emergence of the COVID-19 are there, but I have already received 4 doses of vaccine and I have had no problems at all. I just come from abroad, I travel a lot and faced no problems. There is no infection, nothing. I trust the vaccine.
I think it is okay. It's normal now because all of us have been vaccinated.
While the royal government has lifted the outdoor mask mandate, Prime Minister Hun Sen still urges all to wear masks while in crowded public areas in order to reduce the risk of transmission.
ខ្ញុំប្រកាសណាខ្ញុំសូមចូលរួមអបអរសាទរជាមួយប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលថ្ងៃនេះនឹងបានរំដោះខ្លួនចេញពីម៉ាស់ក៏ប៉ុន្តែក៏នៅតែអំពាវនាវឲ្យរក្សាទុកម៉ាស់ជាប់នឹងខ្លួននៅពេលដែលចូលដល់កន្លែងដែលត្រូវចាំបាច់ពាក់ម៉ាស់ដោយបានកំណត់ដែលក្រសួងសុខាភិបាលនិងផ្នែកពាក់ព័ន្ធនឹងរៀបចំវិធានការបញ្ជាក់ទៅតាមក្រោយថាកន្លែងណាដែលពាក់និងកន្លែងណាដែលមិនពាក់
After the 28th November outbreak in 2020, Prime Minister Hun Sen released a video from his house on the 15th of December 2020, with a special statement introducing the implementation of the 3 do's and 3 don'ts health measures, which included mask wearing as a priority. Since then, people in Cambodia diligently wore masks for more than a year. Finally, today, Tuesday, 26th of April 2022, the outdoor mask mandate has been lifted. Dekanin, EAC News.
The National Commission of COVID-19 Vaccination of the Ministry of Health and released a statement urging citizens to get at least the 3rd dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Following the Prime Minister's highest recommendations during his speech at the handover ceremony over the 1 million AstraZeneca vaccines delivered by Italy on Monday. EAC News reporter Srepor Kong has further details.
The National Commission for COVID-19 Vaccination issued a statement on Monday, 25 April, encouraging citizens to get their 3rd dose or booster dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. The statement includes that the National Commission is currently continuing to provide 3rd or 4th dose of COVID-19 booster shot to those aged 5 and above at National Hospital, Referral Hospital, Health Center, and COVID-19 Vaccination Center organized in cooperation with hospital and the 25 capital provincial administrations. The National Commission underlined that the number of people who have received their 3rd or 4th booster dose of the vaccine within the 5 years and above age group is still limited. So the Commission further reminded and urged all eligible members of the public to go and get the booster shot in a timely manner at the aforementioned locations, which will be open every day, including weekend and holidays. The statement confirmed that all eligible will be able to get a booster dose simply by showing their COVID-19 vaccination card. The National 3rd Dose Vaccination Campaign was officially announced by Prime Minister Hun Sen on the morning of Monday, 25 April, during the handover ceremony of over 1 million AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines delivered by the government and people of Italy. As of Tuesday, 26 April, the outdoor mask mandate has also been lifted in Cambodia, meaning that members of the public can now choose whether to wear masks or not in outdoor public areas at their own volition. The Prime Minister has emphasized that with mask wearing no longer being mandatory, it is even more important that all citizens get their booster doses of the COVID-19 vaccine to build local herd immunity and ensure community protection. Sripokong, EAC News.
The Minister of Public Works and Transport Senior Minister Sun Chantal has said that the construction of the Phnom Penh-Sihanoukville Expressway is 90.95% complete and the expressway will be ready for trial use in July 2022. He added that it will be officially inaugurated in a future appropriate time under the presidency of the Prime Minister Hun Sen. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has more.
Senior Minister Sun Chanthol added that this new expressway will contribute to the growth of both Phnom Penh and Sihanoukville as economic poles by making travel between the 2 cities faster than usual, reducing costs and travel time, and also the number of traffic accidents occurring on National Road Number 4. He further added that the royal government is currently studying the master plan to make Sihanoukville a multi-purpose special economic zone, and this expressway will help to serve this master plan by attracting more national and international investors. The Phnom Penh-Sihanoukville Expressway is 187.05 kilometers long and began construction on 22 March 2019. As of Tuesday, 26 April 2022, the expressway is undergoing the last stages of completion, and construction is scheduled to officially end on 31st May 2023. This new road connects Village 1 Samrang Kram Commune, Por Senche District in Phnom Penh to Village 1 District 3 in Sihanoukville. The expressway is built by PPSHV Expressway Co. Limited and a subsidiary of China Road Bridge Corporation, with technical inspection done by Min Consult SDN BHD. The total construction time is 48 months with a total cost of over $2 billion. The expressway will have 4 lanes with a total width of 24.5 meters, 7 intersections, 3 rest areas, 1 parking lot, 4 operation and maintenance centers, 40 main and medium bridges, and 5 small bridges, which all pass through about 8 kilometers of Phnom Penh and the 4 provinces of Kandal, Kampong Spu, Kokong, and Pria Sihanouk. The Phnom Penh-Sihanoukville Expressway project is the first expressway project in Cambodia, making it the most important strategic corridor project in the kingdom. The expressway will greatly reduce the travel time from Phnom Penh to Sihanoukville port from 5 hours to just 2 hours, which will help to also reduce logistical costs. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Twitter is set to agree on a sale to Elon Musk for around $43 billion in cash. The price the chief executive of Tesla has called it the best final offer of a social media company. People familiar with the matter said.
Human rights group on Monday raised concerns about hate speech on Twitter and the power that its takeover by Elon Musk must give the billionaire after the self-described free speech absolutist clinched a deal to take the social media platform private. Musk, who is also chief executive of electric car maker Tesla, has described himself as a free speech absolutist who has been critical of Twitter's policies of moderating content on the platform. He has said Twitter needs to become a genuine forum for free speech. In a statement after securing the deal on Monday, Musk described free speech as the bedrock of a functioning democracy. Twitter is not just another company, human rights advocates noted. Regardless of who owns Twitter, the company has human rights responsibility to respect the rights of people around the world who rely on the platform. Changes to its policies, features, and algorithms, big and small, can have disproportionate and sometimes devastating impacts, including offline violence. Deborah Brown, a digital rights researcher and advocate at Human Rights Watch. Freedom of expression is not an absolute right, which is why Twitter needs to invest in efforts to keep its most vulnerable users safe on the platform, she added. Twitter did not immediately respond to a request for comment on concerns raised by the groups. While Elon Musk is an ACLU card-carrying member and one of our most significant supporters, there's a lot of danger having so much power in the hands of any one individual. Anthony Romero, executive director at the American Civil Liberties Union, told Reuters after the deal was announced. Amnesty International said it was concerned about any potential decision that Twitter may take after Musk take over to erode enforcement of the policies and mechanisms designed to moderate hate speech online. The last thing we need is a Twitter that willfully turns a blind eye to violent and abusive speech against users, particularly those most disproportionately impacted, including women, non-binary persons, and others, Michael Kleinman, Director of Technology and Human Rights at Amnesty International USA, said on Monday.
A senior Russian diplomat said on Monday, the 25th of April, there was no point in having a ceasefire in Ukraine at this stage, because Kyiv would likely use it as an opportunity to discredit Russia after Kyiv denied reaching an agreement with Moscow over the humanitarian corridor.
Dmitry Polyansky, Russia's first deputy permanent representative to the United Nations, said Ukraine is compromising our efforts to open these corridors, so we don't think a ceasefire is a good option right now. Ukraine earlier denied reaching a deal with Russia on evacuating civilians from a steel plant in the southern city of Mariupol and said the United Nations should be the initiator and guarantor of any such deal. Polyansky said a ceasefire would only be an opportunity for Ukrainian forces to regroup and stage more provocations. He said Russia had not struck any residential areas in Ukraine's Black Sea port city of Odessa. Ukraine's Southern Air Command on Saturday said that 2 missiles struck a military facility and 2 residential buildings in Odessa. Russia had said earlier on Monday that it would open a humanitarian corridor for civilians to leave Mariupol's huge Azovstal steel plant, where they are holed up with Ukrainian fighters and are under Russian fire.
Is it time for a ceasefire?
Sorry?
Is it time for a ceasefire? I don't
if
think
the
so.
Secretary General asks for a ceasefire, will Russia comply?
I think he asked for Easter ceasefire, and Easter is over right now.
So you didn't comply with his call for an Easter truce.
What?
If he asks for a ceasefire when he goes to Moscow, will Russia comply and end its war?
We are not supposed to comply with the calls. People comply with the orders, but not with the calls. So there was a call for ceasefire, and we opened humanitarian corridors which are not being used by Ukraine, and Ukraine is also compromising our efforts to open these corridors. So we don't think that ceasefire is a good option right now, because the only advantage it will give possibility for Ukrainian forces to regroup and to stage more provocations like Bucha, like I called to you. So frankly, it's not up to me to decide, but I don't see any reasons in this right now. Everyone who wants to get evacuated, for example, from Mariupol, has the opportunity to do so because we opened humanitarian corridors. Today it was also opened. They claim that there are some civilians in this Azovstal, but they do not let them go. I don't see any logic in this.
Former Force Commander of United Nations Transitional Authority in Cambodia, Lieutenant General John Sanderson, arrived in Cambodia from Australia last week and met with the Prime Minister Hun Sen this Wednesday morning at the Peace Palace in Phnom Penh. Upon seeing Cambodia in the present day, he has expressed his pleasant surprise at seeing all the great changes that development has taken place, especially in Phnom Penh. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has the story.
During the face-to-face meeting with Prime Minister Hun Sen at the Peace Palace, Australian Lieutenant General John Sanderson remarked on the great progress Cambodia has made, including the growth of the country's international presence over the last 30 years. In turn, Prime Minister Hun Sen thanked Lieutenant General Sanderson and the Australian government for their contribution to Cambodia's peace process. He said Australia was the first country to recognize the new Cambodian government and abandon its recognition of the prior Khmer Rouge government. The personal assistant of the Prime Minister, Ieng Sopalait, told reporters after the meeting that the Prime Minister stated that any country which recognized Cambodia before Cambodia gained its independence is a country that also helped Cambodia gain independence. The Prime Minister further informed Lieutenant General John Sanderson about the strategic vision leading Cambodia to full peace, along with a strategy to control the spread of COVID-19. The Prime Minister also thanked the government and people of Australia for assisting Cambodia with its COVID-19 response by providing vaccines. Once the meeting concluded, Prime Minister Hun Sen and Lieutenant General Sanderson also had lunch together. Lieutenant General John Murray Sanderson, born on 4th November 1940, is a retired Australian Army officer and Deputy Chief of Staff. He served as Commander-in-Chief of the United Nations Transitional Authority in Cambodia from 1992 to 1993 and Commander-in-Chief of the Army from 1995 to 1998. He was also the 29th Governor of Western Australia from 2000 to 2005. Lieutenant General Sanderson has come to Cambodia to mark the 30th anniversary of UNTAC, as well as the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Cambodia and Australia. He was also awarded with an honorary doctorate in peace by the University of Cambodia on Monday for the important role he played in peace building, as well as in the development of Cambodia. Darshana Gochan, EAC News, Phnom Penh.
The Minister of Interior, Deputy Prime Minister Saw Keng, has urged international organisations for migration to continue its cooperation with Cambodia, while both sides have exhibited good working relations until now. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has further details.
In a meeting with the Regional Director of the International Organization for Migration for Asia and the Pacific, Nanette Motus, on Tuesday, 26th of April, the Minister of Interior, Deputy Prime Minister Saw Keng, praised the good cooperation of the IOM with Cambodia over the years. He continued that during the COVID-19 outbreak, the royal government of Cambodia has made great efforts to pay attention to many activities related to migration, especially Cambodians who migrate across the border between Cambodia and Thailand. The IOM has also been actively involved in the ongoing settlement work by helping to rebuild checkpoints for migrant workers returning to Cambodia. In response, the Asia-Pacific Regional Director of the IOM praised the Cambodian Ministry of Interior's support of migration-related work since 1993. She also congratulated Cambodia for ranking 6th in migration work as well as for assuming the ASEAN chairmanship in 2022. Finally, Deputy Prime Minister Saw Keng expressed hope and confidence that IOM will continue to support Cambodia on migration and climate change in the future. Dekanin, EAC News.
On Monday morning, over 1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine has been sent by Italy officially arrived the Kingdom of Cambodia. The handover ceremony for the vaccines took place at the Peace Palace in Phnom Penh under the presidency of the Prime Minister Hun Sen and the Italian ambassador to Cambodia. EAC News reporter Paul Kong has more.
Foreign Minister Prasakan met with the Italian ambassador to Cambodia, Lorenzo Galenti, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Tuesday morning. During the meeting, the Cambodian foreign minister spoke about the excellent bilateral cooperation that has been demonstrated through trade and presence of well-known Italian food brands and restaurants in Cambodia, emphasizing that despite the COVID-19 crisis, bilateral trade volume between Cambodia and Italy has stabilized and continued to grow. He further encouraged both sides to find more effective ways to boost trade volume. Deputy Prime Minister Prasakan also thanked Italy for its assistance to the ASEAN Regional Center for Mine Action, and in response, the Ambassador Lorenzo Galenti reaffirmed Italy's continued support and assistance to the ASEAN Regional Center for Mine Action. Sri Pokong, EAC News.
The Minister of Health has ordered National COVID-19 Disease Control Commission and the capital provincial authorities to be ready to respond to any COVID-19 outbreaks as Cambodia lifts its outdoor mask mandate nationwide. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has more.
The National COVID-19 Commission and capital provincial authorities are expected to strengthen the health system's response capacity by continuing to prepare emergency response teams and paramedics on standby, prepare COVID-19 medical equipment and treatment drugs, as well as COVID-19 rapid test kits to detect cases and respond in a timely manner so that another mass community outbreak can be prevented. In a letter addressed to the chairman of the National COVID-19 Provincial Capital Commission on Tuesday, 26 April 2022, the Minister of Health, Mam Bun Heng, stated that in order to ensure the effective implementation of the royal government's decision to lift the outdoor mask mandate in Cambodia, the Ministry of Health requests the National COVID-19 Disease Control Commission and all capital provincial authorities to responsibly instruct the public in its jurisdiction about the lifting of the mask mandate and to also clearly explain to citizens about the locations that still require the use of masks, as well as other places where mask wearing is still encouraged. The health minister also instructed all capital provincial committees to encourage people to receive the third dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. He wrote saying, "Service providers in the public and private sectors, as well as the general public, must respect and implement the necessary health and administrative measures and also urgently test for COVID-19 in the situation where symptoms, such as fever, cough, or other upper respiratory tract symptoms, such as nasal congestion, runny nose, itchy, hoarse, or sore throat, appear, and to isolate and receive treatment at home in mild cases of COVID-19 in accordance with the applicable standard operating procedures, and to also cooperate and report all suspected cases that could lead to a reemergence of COVID-19 in the community to the health department or competent authorities." In addition, the Minister of Health also ordered the respective health departments of each capital provincial administration to make a daily report on the COVID-19 positive case count found from the beginning of the mask mandate being lifted and to send it to the National COVID-19 Disease Control Commission, the capital provincial administration, and the Department of Infectious Diseases of the Ministry of Health, so that this relevant data is provided to the Subcommittee on Planning and Strategy for Monitoring and Evaluation of the Status of the COVID-19 Pandemic and Community Immunity. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Russia will on Wednesday stop supplying gas to Poland and Bulgaria, the two NATO and EU members said. An escalation in the deepening rift between the West and Moscow over Ukraine as tensions also surge in neighbouring Moldova.
Kyiv accused Moscow of blackmailing Europe and of trying to drag Moldova into the conflict after authorities in the Moscow-backed region of Transnistria said they had been targeted by a series of attacks. Staunch Kremlin opponent Poland is among the European countries seeking the toughest possible sanctions against Russia for invading its neighbor. Poland's state-owned PGNiG said supplies from energy giant Gazprom via Ukraine and Belarus will be cut at 6 GMT on Wednesday, but Warsaw said it did not need to draw on reserves and its gas storage was 76% full. Russian President Vladimir Putin has called on unfriendly countries to pay for gas imports in rubles, a move only a few buyers have implemented so far. The ultimate goal of Russia's leadership is not just to seize the territory of Ukraine, but to dismember the entire center and east of Europe and deal a global blow to democracy. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said late on Tuesday.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Tuesday, 26th of April, that Russia and Ukraine will continue negotiations online.
At a meeting with United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres in Moscow, Putin also said he hoped that talks would yield a positive result. But the Russian president warned that security agreements would not be signed off until territorial issues were resolved relating to the Crimea Peninsula, which Russia annexed from Ukraine in 2014, and the Donbas People's Republics, whose independence Moscow recognized days before its special military operation began in eastern Ukraine on February 24th this year. The UN said that President Putin also agreed in principle to UN and International Committee for the Red Cross involvement in the evacuation of civilians from the Azovstal plant in Ukraine's Mariupol. Putin mentioned during the meeting, Mariupol, the situation there is difficult and tragic, but it's simple. I talked to President Erdogan today. He said there was fighting there. There is no fighting there. It's over. There is no fighting in Mariupol. It has stopped. He continued, we do hear from the Ukrainian authorities that there are civilians there. Then the Ukrainian army should let the civilians leave. Otherwise, they are acting like terrorists do in many other countries of the world, like ISIS in Syria, hiding behind the civilian population. The simplest thing would be to let these people go. It is as simple as that.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Monday, the 25th of April.
Vehicles were left burnt out and fuel pooled on the ground in Nigeria's Imo State on Sunday, following an overnight explosion at an illegal oil refining depot. The State Commissioner for Petroleum Resources, Goodluck Opaya, said that more than 100 people were killed in the explosion, remarking that they were burnt beyond recognition. The Commissioner for Environment of Imo State, Cyril Duru, said mass burials would be necessary to stop any outbreak of disease, adding that it was not possible to identify the dead due to the condition of the bodies after the blast. The Nigerian Red Cross Society was on the scene on Sunday to assess the extent of the damage. The explosion had destroyed a section of the Abezi Forest, which straddles the border of Ohaji Egbema local government area of Imo State with Rivers State. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari said in a statement that he would intensify the clampdown on illegal refineries after what he described as a catastrophe and national disaster. Unemployment and poverty in the oil-producing Niger Delta have made illegal crude refining an attractive business, albeit with deadly consequences. Crude oil is tapped from a web of pipelines owned by major oil companies and refined into products in makeshift tanks. Government officials estimate that Nigeria, Africa's biggest oil producer and exporter, loses an average of 200,000 barrels of oil per day, more than 10% of production, to illegal tapping or vandalizing of pipelines.
Hundreds protested in Mexico City on Sunday, the 24th of April, to demand justice of victims and violence for the femicides after the death of Deborah Escobar, an 18-year-old law student whose body was found submerged in a water tank inside the grounds of the motel of the northern state of Nuevo León. The prosecutors demanded a resignation of the State Secretary Alday Frasky and carried signs with names or faces of Debahi and other local women who have gone missing or been found dead recently. Local authorities in Nuevo León said on Friday the 22nd of April that the cause of Escobar's death was a contusion of the skull and that all the lines investigation remained open. The nearly 2-week search for Escobar, who disappeared on 9th of April, has sparked new anguish and outrage over gender violence, prompting protests across the country. Her death came amid a spate of disappearances of women in the state of Nuevo León since the beginning of this year. At least 26 women and girls have disappeared and 6 more, including Deborah, have been found dead after reporting missing.
Con này tầm khoảng 60 tí. Nó đi từ cửa hàng vào.
One of the world's largest cave systems lies within the misty hill of Vietnam's central Quang Binh province. Phong Nha Ke Bang National Park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and tour guide Ngoc Anh is very familiar with the jungle and especially the trees that grow there. The 36-year-old used to be a logger who used to illegally chop down the valuable trees to sell as a timber. But as extreme rainfall and flood increasingly devastated his community, Anh read up on the ongoing climate and natural crisis and turned instead to tourism and conservation. Now he is one of 250 former loggers trained by an adventure tourism company to lead mostly foreign tourists through jungle and cave. According to Global Forest Watch, Vietnam lost about 3 million hectares of tree cover between 2001 and 2020, a 20% decrease since 20 years ago, driven primarily by the commodity sector. A government crackdown on illegal logging since 2007 has helped slow down the rate of deforestation, and the country has joined a recent global pledge to end deforestation by 2030. Ngoc Anh joined the company Ozalis Adventure Tours in 2015, just 2 years after one of the world's largest caves opened to the public. He learned to speak English through daily interaction with foreign tourists. There are now around 250 former illegal loggers who work in tourism. Always accompanied by a park ranger, Ngoc Anh and other tour guides help patrol the trail to keep poachers away, remove animal traps, and clean up trash. He says he is happy to see more animals in the forest compared to a decade ago, when logging was in full swing. The guides now earn less than half of what they earned in the logging days, but hope to earn more as tourism and travel gradually resume.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Tuesday, the 26th of April.
Dragon SpaceX Comcheck.
The first all-private astronaut team ever flown aboard the International Space Station safely splashed down in the Atlantic off Florida's coast on Monday, April 25th, completing a 2-week science mission held as a milestone in commercial spaceflight. The SpaceX crew capsule carrying the 4-man team, led by a retired NASA astronaut who is now vice president of the Texas company behind the mission, Axiom Space, parachuted into the sea after a 16-hour descent from orbit. The splashdown, carried live by a joint Axiom SpaceX webcast, was originally planned for last Wednesday, but the return flight was delayed due to unfavorable weather. The return from orbit followed a plunge through Earth's atmosphere, generating frictional heat that sends temperatures surrounding the outside of the capsule soaring to 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit or 1,927 degrees Celsius. The astronauts' flight suits are designed to keep them cool as the cabin heats up. Applause was heard from the SpaceX Flight Control Center in suburban Los Angeles as parachutes billowed open above the capsule in the final stage of its descent, slowing its fall to about 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour, and again as the craft hit the water off the coast of Jacksonville. A small recovery boat with a 3-member team reached the Crew Dragon minutes later to secure the visibly heat-scorched craft as it bobbed upright in the ocean. The capsule was hoisted from the sea onto the deck of a larger recovery vessel about 40 minutes later, and the hatch was opened to let the astronauts emerge. Air camera shot from inside the capsule showed the 4 crew members strapped into their seats, garbed in their helmeted white and black spacesuits. The mission's crew was assembled, equipped, and trained entirely at private expense by Axiom, a 5-year-old venture based in Houston and headed by NASA's former ISS program manager. The U.S. Space Agency furnished the launch site at its Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, and assumed responsibility for the Axiom crew while they were aboard the space station. NASA's ISS crew members also pitched in to assist the private astronauts when needed. The multinational Axiom team was led by Spanish-born retired NASA astronaut Michael Lopez Alegria, 63, the company's vice president for business development. His second-in-command was Larry Connor, 22, a technology entrepreneur and aerobatics aviator from Ohio, designated the mission pilot. Joining them as mission specialists were investor philanthropist and former Israeli fighter pilot Eston Stebe, 64, and the Canadian businessman and philanthropist Mark Pathy, 52. Connor, Stebe, and Pathy flew as customers of Axiom, which charges $50 million to $60 million per seat for such flights. Launched on April 8, they spent 15 days aboard the space station with the 7 regular government-paid ISS crew members, 3 American astronauts, a German astronaut, and 3 Russian cosmonauts. SpaceX, the private launch service founded by Tesla electric car maker CEO Elon Musk, supplied the Falcon 9 rocket and Crew Dragon capsule that carried Axiom's team to and from orbit, controlled the flight, and handled the splashdown recovery. SpaceX has been hired to fly 3 more Axiom astronaut missions to ISS over the next 2 years.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday the 25th of April accused the West of trying to murder Russian journalists and said that the Federal Security Service had thwarted one such attempt on a television reporter. This morning, the Federal Security Service stopped activities of a terrorist group that planned to attack and kill one of the famous Russian TV journalists, Putin told prosecutors. They have moved to Terra to preparing to murder our journalist, Putin said. He did not immediately provide evidence to support his claims. Reuters was unable to immediately verify the claims. The Interfax news agency said that members of the nationalist group had been detained by Russian authorities Interfax said that the group, acting on orders of the Ukrainian spies, was plotting to kill Russian journalist Vladimir Solovyev. Putin said that the West was trying to destroy Russia from the inside, but that such attempts would fail. He said the US Central Intelligence Agents was directing attempts to undermine Russian and advising the Ukraine government. Putin also said foreign media organizations had social media had been used by the West to conflict provocations against Russian armed forces. Such actions, he said, should be stopped.
Firefighters battle blast in a multi-story residential building after a Russian attack on Ukraine's eastern city of Kharkiv on Monday, 25 April. Emergency worker broke into one of the burning apartments as local residents watched on. At least 2 apartments were severely damaged. Complete bastard. You can't even imagine, it is horrific, said one eyewitness, Alexander. Ukraine's general staff said Russia was shelling Kharkiv, its second biggest city. Shelling by the Russian army has intensified in recent weeks. Moscow, which described its action in Ukraine as a special military operation, denies targeting civilians.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has accepted the invitation from US President Joe Biden to attend the upcoming ASEAN-US Summit on the 12th and 13th of May. He has stressed that Cambodia fully supports the enhancement of ASEAN-US relations from the strategic partner to a comprehensive strategic partner. In a letter dated Thursday, the 28th of April 2022, Prime Minister Hun Sen thanked the President of the United States for his invitation and said he would attend the summit in May. He believes that though the US President Joe Biden's commitment to further strengthen US-ASEAN relations, especially on the occasion of the 45th anniversary of the ASEAN-US Dialogue Partnership, the partnership will be taken a step forward of the new level. The Prime Minister wrote, saying at the ASEAN Chair for 2022, I wish to reiterate Cambodia's strong desire to explore more opportunities to expand the ASEAN-US cooperation in all fronts. I am also confident that the special summit will serve an excellent opportunity for us to discuss on further enhancing our cooperation and exchange views on issues for common concern and interest in both ASEAN and United States. On the 20th of April, US President Joe Biden sent an official letter to the Prime Minister Hun Sen inviting him to attend the ASEAN-US Summit in Washington on the 12th and 13th of May 2022. Biden wrote, I am pleased to invite the Prime Minister to attend the ASEAN-US Special Summit in Washington, D.C. on the 12th and 13th of May 2022. During the summit, we will celebrate the 45th anniversary of the long-standing partnership of outlining our shared ambitions for a new era of the ASEAN-US Dialogue Partnership. I'm looking forward to meeting with the Prime Minister and other ASEAN leaders at the White House. Speaking at the meeting with the Cambodian delegation for the 31st SEA Games in Vietnam on Thursday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen said that he will leave for the United States on the 10th of May. During his visit, he said he will also meet with Cambodians living in the United States. The ASEAN-US Summit on the 12th to 13th of May 2022 is the second special summit of its kind to be held since 2016 and is also for the first face-to-face meeting with the US and ASEAN leaders since 2017. Prime Minister Hun Sen has urged the athletes who will participate in the 2022 South Asian Games to respect the rules and avoid the use of drugs or doping to protect the country's dignity. EAC News reporter Deccan Nin has more details.
Speaking at a meeting held at Gopik Theatre with more than 600 sports delegates for the 31st SEA Games on Thursday morning, Prime Minister Hun Sen warned that the use of performance-enhancing drugs in sports will negatively impact the image of the nation and must not happen at all costs. The Prime Minister said,
ក្មួយជាកម្មករកម្មការជាកីឡាករកីឡាការិនីត្រូវដឹងឲ្យច្បាស់ថាការទៅប្រកួតនេះគឺកាន់ទង់ព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាទង់ជាតិនៃព្រះរាជាណាចក្រកម្ពុជាទៅជាមួយដូច្នេះក្មួយត្រូវតែដឹងថានៅជាប់នឹងខ្លួនក្មួយនោះមានតួអង្គព្រះមហាក្សត្រមានតួអង្គនីតិបញ្ញត្តិរដ្ឋសភាព្រឹទ្ធសភាមានតួអង្គនីតិប្រណិប័តជាពិសេសមានប្រជាជនជិត17លាននាក់ដែលនៅជាមួយនឹងក្មួយ
He also told the athletes attending the competition to consistently respect the rules and regulations. A total of 560 representatives from Cambodia will be attending the 31st SEA Games in Hanoi, Vietnam, which includes 45 sports leaders and officials, 363 athletes, 93 coaches and assistant coaches, 16 international referees, 22 team leaders, and 21 doctors. Dekanin, EAC News.
Prime Minister Hun Sen has ordered the Minister of Economy and the Minister of Health to transfer the COVID-19 patients who are being treated in Olympic Stadium to Lung Mai Hospital and Chak Angre Hospital so that the stadium can begin undergo repairs for the 2023 South Asian Games, which is in Cambodia will host. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchan has more details.
The Prime Minister gave the order to transfer COVID-19 patients from the stadium to hospitals during a meeting with the Cambodian sports delegation participating in the 31st SEA Games on Thursday morning at the Gopik Theatre in Phnom Penh.
ចឹងអាចទេអ្នកជំងឺនេះដែលនៅនឹងនេះទៅឬទៅចាក់អង្រេអស់អ្នកជំងឺគេទៅដូច្នេះចាំពិភាក្សាគ្នាឡើងវិញ ឬទៅមន្ទីរពេទ្យលួងម៉ាឬទៅមន្ទីរពេទ្យចាក់អង្រេព្រោះដើម្បីប្រគល់ start ហ្នឹងសម្រាប់ការជួសជុលឲ្យហើយស្រោតព្រោះយើងនៅសល់ពេលតែមួយឆ្នាំទៀតទេការប្រកួត SEA Games នឹងមកដល់ហើយយើងក៏យកកន្លែងហ្នឹងធ្វើការវឹកហាត់បន្ថែមទៀតដែរតន់អ្នកជំងឺរបស់យើងមានការថយចុះ
According to the Prime Minister, there are currently more than 90 COVID-19 patients being treated in Cambodia, including 26 in Phnom Penh. On 25th April 2021, following the 20th February community outbreak event which caused many citizens in Phnom Penh to get infected with COVID-19, the Phnom Penh Municipal Administration decided to allocate the National Olympic Stadium, the National Polytechnic Institute, and the Premier Sensok Building as COVID-19 treatment centers. However, after the community event was officially closed by Prime Minister Hun Sen on 20th December 2021, the National Polytechnic Institute and the Premier Sensok Building were reinstated for their original purposes by the Cabinet capital administration, leaving only the National Olympic Stadium assigned as a COVID-19 treatment center. According to the governor of Phnom Penh, Governor Khuong Sreng, the COVID-19 treatment center in Phnom Penh may be completed by early 2023.
The Program Appraisal Committee of the Accelerating Disability Rights in Cambodia program held its meeting present the final program document and seek comments to guide the program's implementation on Thursday morning. The RDRC in the United Nations joint program between UNDP, OHCHR and UNESCO, with technical support provided to ILO and fully funded by United Nations Partnership to promote the rights of persons with disabilities. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has the details.
The meeting was held in hybrid online-offline format and was co-chaired by the Secretary of State of the Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation and Secretary-General of the Disability Action Council, M. Chan Makara, and the UN Resident Coordinator, Pauline Temesis. Also in attendance were other government officials and representatives from the UNDP, OHCHR, UNESCO, ILO, and other relevant NGOs, government and private sector agencies. UN Resident Coordinator Pauline Temesis opened the meeting by welcoming all in attendance and giving a brief overview of the findings from the UNPRPD Secretariat-approved inception phase that involved a situation analysis of persons with disabilities in Cambodia and the program design in collaboration with various government institutions, organizations of persons with disabilities, and civil society organizations, with the participation of around 78 people, including 25 women. She said that the main key findings and recommendations from the situation analysis included strengthening national and subnational coordination mechanisms for expanded social protection coverage of persons with disabilities across the country, enhancing the capacity of organizations of persons with disabilities, women with disabilities forums, and the government, and supporting the implementation of the COVID-19 recovery plan, which will help persons with disabilities exercise their rights and access services and support. The UN Resident Coordinator further underlined that the main aim of the ADRC program is to enable structural change for the full inclusion of persons with disabilities in Cambodia. She also outlined the 3 program outcomes focused on enhancing stakeholder capacity to contribute to disability-inclusive policies and systems, reduce gaps between the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and humanitarian programs, and mainstream disability inclusion in national development and humanitarian plans. Representatives from the UNDP, the main implementing agency, and partners OHCHR and UNESCO presented the final details of the program document, such as the program rationale, strategy, work plan, budget, and monitoring and evaluation. Some of the main background findings included the lack of mainstreaming of disability into broader policies and plans in Cambodia, as well as how the COVID-19 pandemic particularly negatively impacted the livelihoods of persons with disabilities. The main strategies outlined to successfully implement the project included amending the new disability law and monitoring implementation in consultation with organizations of persons with disabilities and women with disabilities forums, improving access to information, justice, and legal aid services, and vocational training and employment for persons with disabilities, and enhancing the capacity of organizations working in the disability sector. The meeting also clarified that there would be a program steering committee established, co-chaired by the Secretary of State of the Ministry of Social Affairs and the UN Resident Coordinator, and with relevant government, UN organization, and disability-focused local NGO representatives as members. The committee would be in charge of providing overall guidance and overseeing the implementation of the ADRC program. Following a brief Q&A session in which several partner and non-partnered organizations expressed their collective support of the program, Secretary of State M. Chan Makara delivered the closing remarks. He thanked the committee for inviting him to the meeting on behalf of the Minister of Social Affairs, Vong South, and expressed great appreciation for the draft program details presented, saying that he fully supports and agrees with the program initiative. He further continued that he is very grateful that the project focuses on Cambodian persons with disabilities, saying that he was happy to see a large amount of funding being dedicated to support the royal government of Cambodia in amending the national disability law and supporting the livelihoods of persons with disabilities after the COVID-19 pandemic. He took the opportunity to thank the UNDP for supporting Disability Action Council on the implementation of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as well as the National Strategy Plan for Persons with Disabilities. The Secretary of State particularly mentioned how Prime Minister Hun Sen gives a lot of priority to the disability sector in Cambodia and spoke about how a new Center for Disability is currently being built and will be completed next year. He clarified that the royal government has so far ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and also has its own national law on the protection of persons with disabilities, and added that he hopes to see these documents get translated into action plans. The meeting concluded on a note of general agreement and collective endorsement for the program. The Accelerating Disability Rights in Cambodia program was developed with the aim to enable structural changes, such as improving legislative framework, enhancing implementation of policies, increasing participation in decision-making, which are necessary for the full inclusion of persons with disabilities into Cambodian society. The program will run from 5th March 2022 to 31st December 2023, with a budget of $622,419. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The 31st South Asian Games will run from the 12th to 23rd of May in 2022 in Hoi, Vietnam. 560 representatives of Cambodia, including 363 athletes, will attend this major regional sports event. EAC News spoke to some of the athletes gearing up to compete at the Games, who widely expressed their happiness of being able to attend and show their confidence that they will be able to bring medals back to the motherland. EAC News reporter Decca Nin will tell you more about it.
On the morning of Thursday, 28th of April, at the Cockpit Conference Hall, Prime Minister Hun Sen met with more than 600 Cambodian athletes, coaches, and sports delegates set to attend the SEA Games in May. He encouraged them to train hard and to try and win to the best of their abilities to bring honor to the nation. Some of the athletes present at the meeting said that they are currently training hard to get good results in competition. However, they also expressed some of their concerns about next month's competition.
I took part in the Philippines. I took part in the 2019 SEA Games in the Philippines, but the result was not good for us. It was my first experience at the Games. For this upcoming event, I have gained experience from the previous SEA Games. So I will use this past experience of failures to develop myself, and I will work hard to get good results for basketball. With all the support and the government has provided us. What worries me is players from other countries, most of whom are mixed ethnicity, so they are bigger than us. And it is difficult for us to keep up with them.
In recent years, Cambodia has won a series of gold medals in Patong, so it can be considered a priority sport for the country. With Cambodia's top Patong players participating in the SEA Games, expectations are high.
All of our sports teams are hopeful. And why is that? Because our team is training hard. Both men and women are training so hard we have no free time. So my team, both men and women, are training for the nation.
Us players always have hope, but we can't say in advance how it will be until we get into the game. Because we know ourselves, we also have hope, but we can't determine what medal we can bring. The important thing is trying to get medal for the nation is the best outcome for us players.
The coaches and sports delegates also showed similar confidence.
As a coach, there must be hope, but we can't talk about the level. We can only say that our national training and our athletes are good. But when we go to compete out there, they could be intimidated by other players. But if they are not afraid, we will succeed. On these matters, I do not dare make high predictions.
When
we competed in Malaysia, we won a bronze medal. And in 2019, we competed in the Philippines. And we won up to 5 bronze medals. Thus, we are progressing. This year at the 31st SEA Games in Vietnam, we hope that our athletes will win medals too. But we do not know what levels we are competing with.
Experts predict that Cambodia will win at least 5 gold medals at this year's SEA Games. The Minister of Tourism, Thong Khon, said that during the 2022 SEA Games, Cambodia will both partake in the competition and study how the event is organized, as the kingdom will be hosting the 32nd SEA Games next year. The minister added that Cambodia is ready to participate in 33 sporting categories in Hanoi. On the occasion of meeting with the 600 members of the Cambodian delegation for the 31st SEA Games, Prime Minister Hun Sen announced that he would provide $500 to each athlete attending the Games this year, and also ordered the Olympic Committee of Cambodia to organize a direct flight to Hanoi with a local airline to further strengthen to the country's image in the field of sport. The Prime Minister also instructed all players to respect the rules of the game and to absolutely avoid using performance-enhancing drugs to protect the dignity of Cambodia. Good luck to all our SEA Games athletes. Lê Khả Ninh, EAC News.
Countries opposed to Russian invasion of Ukraine must double down on their support to Kyiv, including the supply of heavy weapons, tanks and aeroplanes, British Foreign Secretary Liz Truss said on Wednesday, 27th of April.
The biggest assault on a European state since World War II has so far killed thousands and caused widespread destruction across Ukraine. So far, Britain, European Union states, the United States, and other allies have supplied weaponry to help Ukrainian forces fight the Russian army, but they have stopped short of engaging in direct conflict with Moscow. While Ukraine has urged the West to provide more support, Russia accuses NATO of creating a serious risk of nuclear war by arming Ukraine in a proxy battle. Moscow says it launched a special military operation on February 24th because the United States was using Ukraine to threaten Russia and to protect Russian-speaking people there. Kyiv and its allies say these are pretexts for an unprovoked land grab. Truss outlined a new approach in which countries should spend more on defense and where NATO takes a more global outlook while economic dependency on aggressors' nations to be reduced. Since the Russian invasion force was driven back at the outskirts of Kyiv last month, Moscow has refocused its operation on eastern Ukraine, starting a new offensive from several directions to fully capture two provinces known as the Donbass. Earlier on Wednesday, Russian forces had used tear gas and stun grenades to disperse a pro-Ukraine rally in the southern city of Kherson, the first big urban center seized by Moscow after the February 24th invasion. Truss also warned China that failure to play by global rules would cut short its rise as a superpower and said the West should ensure that Taiwan can defend itself.
We can't be complacent. The fate of Ukraine hangs in the balance. But let's be clear, if Putin succeeds, there will be untold further misery across Europe and terrible consequences across the globe. We would never feel safe again. So we must be prepared for the long haul. We've got to double down on our support for Ukraine, and we must follow through on the unity that we've shown in the crisis. We must reboot, recast, and remodel our approach. My vision is a world where free nations are assertive and in the ascendant, where freedom and democracy are strengthened through a network of economic and security partnerships, where aggressors are contained and forced to take a better path. This is the long-term prize, a new era of peace, security, and prosperity.
Human rights lawyer Amal Clooney urged countries in the United Nations on Wednesday, 27th of April, to focus on international justice for war crimes in Ukraine so evidence does not sit in storage as it had done for victims of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria.
Ukraine is today a slaughterhouse right in the heart of Europe, Clooney told an informal UN Security Council meeting on accountability in Ukraine organized by France and Albania. Clooney recalled a 2017 Security Council vote to approve a measure she helped lobby for, the creation of a UN team to collect, preserve, and store evidence of possible international crimes committed by the Islamic State in Iraq. It was the same year her son and daughter with U.S. actor George Clooney were born. My children are now almost 5, and so far most of the evidence collected by the UN is in storage because there is no international court to put ISIS on trial, she said. The International Criminal Court, which handles war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, and crimes of aggression, has no jurisdiction because Iraq and Syria are not members. Clooney is part of an international legal task force advising Ukraine on securing accountability for Ukrainian victims in national jurisdictions and working with the Hague-based ICC. ICC prosecutor Karim Khan opened an investigation into Ukraine a week after Russia's February 24th invasion. This is a time when we need to mobilize the law and send it into battle, not on the side of Ukraine against the Russian Federation or on the side of the Russian Federation against Ukraine, but on the side of humanity, Khan told the UN meeting. Russian diplomat Sergei Leonidchenko described the ICC as a political instrument. He accused the United States and Britain of hypocrisy for supporting the ICC inquiry in Ukraine after doing everything imaginable to shield their own military. Moscow describes its February 24th invasion of Ukraine as a special military operation and denies targeting civilians. Ukrainian Prosecutor General Irina Venediktova's office has told Reuters it is preparing war crimes charges against at least 7 Russian military personnel.
The Chief of Staff Joint Staff and the Japanese Self-Defense Force, General Yamazaki Kaju, has informed Prime Minister Hun Sen that the Japanese is pleased with the military cooperation with Cambodia and has decided the preparation of a joint military exercises between Japan and Cambodia. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has further details.
In a meeting with Prime Minister Hun Sen at the Peace Palace on Friday morning, General Yamazaki Koji informed the Prime Minister that his current visit to Cambodia is to further strengthen and expand cooperation in the field of defense, in accordance with the joint declaration made between the leaders of Japan and Cambodia. He added that Japan would like to see long-term military cooperation with Cambodia, focused on training for humanitarian aid, disaster relief, and counter-terrorism. The personal assistant of the Prime Minister, Ian Sopalait, told reporters after the meeting that General Yamazaki informed Prime Minister Hun Sen that he met with General Vong Pisen and Lieutenant General Hun Manait to discuss long-term cooperation in the field of national defense, focusing on training for humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, and terrorism prevention towards achieving a free and open Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister Hun Sen welcomed General Yamazaki's remarks, encouraging the Japanese and Cambodian armies to work together on existing cooperation and to continue the work as mentioned. This year marks the 30th anniversary of Japanese peacekeeping operations on the international stage. Cambodia was the first country that Japan arrived in to begin its peacekeeping operations, helping maintain peace in 1992 during the UNTAC era. Next year, 2023, will also mark the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Japan and Cambodia. Earlier this year, Cambodia and Japan saw a strengthening of ties after Japan invited Lieutenant General Hun Manait for an official visit, and Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio also visited Cambodia when 2 Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force ships docked in Sihanoukville in March. Prime Minister Hun Sen also recently attended the Asia-Pacific Water Summit in Japan, where he once again met with the Japanese Prime Minister. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Minister of Labour, It Sam Heng, has decided to send a technical team to Thailand in the near future in order to help Cambodian workers renew their overseas Cambodian worker cards and other travel documents. EAC News reporter Decca Ning has the details.
During a meeting with the Deputy Director General of Thai Agricultural Company CP, Prida Chunwong, at the Ministry of Labour on Thursday, 28th of April, Minister of Labour It Sam Heng said that through the Memorandum of Understanding between Cambodia and Thailand, it is mutually beneficial for Thailand to have enough manpower for production and for Cambodians to have the opportunity to get legal jobs in Thailand. He added that in the future, the Commission for the Legalization of Cambodian Workers residing and working in Thailand will send a technical team to complete a mission in Thailand to renew the overseas Cambodian worker cards and travel documents of Cambodian workers. The minister said if Cambodian workers in Thailand are staying and working with expired document or have less than 6 months left to renew, they can apply for renewal through the automation system of the Department of Employment of the Thai Ministry of Labour. The Deputy Director General of CP, Prida Chunwong, thanked Minister It Sam Heng for supporting his company's business operations and announced his company would increase its investment in Cambodia to contribute to the economy and livelihoods of Cambodians so that everyone can experience progress like his company. He also informed the Minister of Labour that currently there are more than 10,000 Cambodian workers working in his company in Thailand, which will also to receive an additional 2,000 workers from Cambodia soon. He described Cambodian workers as honest and patient with their work and stressed that Cambodian workers will receive the same benefits as workers of other countries. In addition, he added that his company has a training program to build the skills and capacities of workers, which also provides scholarship for education and leadership training in different departments of the company. Minister It Sam Heng accepted the request from the Thai company requesting 2,000 more Cambodian workers and expressed his pleasure that this company had also bought agricultural products from Cambodian farmers, helping to also improve this important Cambodian market and the livelihoods of farmers to a certain extent. He further encourages companies to increase partnerships with Cambodian farmers by ordering more local agricultural products. Minister It Sam Heng also received an invite from CP to visit the company headquarters in Thailand. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Secretary of State of Ministry of Social Affairs and Secretary General of Disability Action Council, M. Chanmakra, has said that supporting persons with disabilities means promoting disability rights and improving the situation of persons with disabilities in Cambodia, adding that his work will require participation of all stakeholders. In this regard, he said the valuable contribution of the Ministry of Economical and Finance greatly helps in efficiently promoting of the rights of persons with disabilities. EAC News reporter Darshana Guchin has the story.
The Secretary of State of the Ministry of Social Affairs, M. Chanmakara, spoke at a seminar on behalf of the Minister of Social Affairs, Vong South, to disseminate the National Disability Strategic Plan 2019 to 2023 among leaders and officials of the Ministry of Economy and Finance on Friday morning. During his speech, he said that the royal government of Cambodia has set a vision for persons with disabilities and their families, for them to have a good quality of life and be able to participate equally in society with respect for their rights and dignity, as well as establishing a disability-inclusive environment in all areas. He continued that based on this vision, the royal government of Cambodia has decided to launch the National Disability Strategic Plan 2019 to 2023, which is the second stage in defining this vision and forming the roadmap to continue promoting the elimination of barriers faced by persons with disabilities in society. He said that under the leadership of Prime Minister Hun Sen, Cambodia has won the battle against COVID-19, restoring the economic situation and establishing the full peace and complete political stability that Cambodia has today. He said that this has provided an opportunity for Cambodia to further develop its disability sector so that persons with disabilities receive support in various forms, such as through the establishment of physical and medical rehabilitation centers, prosthetics factories, vocational training centers for persons with disabilities, the National Center for Infants and Children, and the Center for Care and Rehabilitation of the Mentally Ill. The Secretary of State lamented, however, that the COVID-19 pandemic greatly affected persons with disabilities and also hampered the effective implementation of the strategic plan. In light of this setback, he urged all leaders and relevant officials of the Ministry of Economy to join Disability Action Council in expediting the implementation of this national plan. He said, "In this regard, the attention of the leaders and relevant officials of the Ministry of Economy and Finance is of great value and an indispensable contribution to accelerating the implementation and effectiveness of the national plan. This is to ensure that persons with disabilities have access to increased employment and economic security, increased access to health services and rehabilitation, access to technical and vocational education and training, facilitation of equitable participation, access to justice and freedoms, ensuring gender equality, mitigating the risks and impacts of disasters, as well as strengthening cooperation within the national and international frameworks and ensuring reliable and comparable disability data and statistics." The Secretary of State expressed that he believes this workshop is an important step for leaders and officials of the Ministry of Economy and Finance to consider allocating the national budget for the priority implementation of the National Disability Strategic Plan, as well as for budget allocation to the relevant ministries, institutions, and subnational administrations that can effectively implement the royal government's strategic plan to success. Also speaking at the workshop was the Second Secretary of the Australian Embassy in Cambodia, Connor Floyd. During his speech, he acknowledged the great commitment of the royal government of Cambodia towards achieving an inclusive society and realizing the rights of persons with disabilities in all sectors. He noted that the royal government's commitment has materialized through the development of a law to promote the rights of persons with disabilities in 2009, the ratification of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2012, the development of the first National Disability Strategic Plan from 2014 to 2018, and the current National Disability Strategic Plan from 2019 to 2023. He stated that the Government of Australia is a long-standing partner of the royal government regarding the advancement of the rights of persons with disabilities, and through the Australia-Cambodia Cooperation for Equitable Sustainable Service Program, also known as ACCESS, which involves close collaboration with the Disability Action Council Secretariat General, the Ministry of Social Affairs, the Persons with Disabilities Foundation, and civil society stakeholders to ensure effective implementation of the National Strategic Plan. He said, A unique and challenging aspect of the National Disability Strategic Plan is that its scope cuts across all sectors, and its implementation therefore requires the active engagement of a large number of line ministries and subnational administrations. Promoting disability inclusion is not the duty of the Ministry of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth alone, but it should be part of everyone's agenda, be it through dedicated activities and program budget or mainstreaming into the core mandates of the government agencies at all levels and sectors. He noted that a few ministries have dedicated disability interventions and budget from the royal government, such as the Ministry of Education supporting special education for students with disabilities, the Ministry of Women's Affairs supporting women and girls with disabilities, and other ministries integrating disability inclusion across their core activities in other ways such as through service delivery, capacity development, accessible infrastructure, and social protection. With that said, he also noted that resources still remain limited to meet demand across all sectors, particularly in the context of COVID-19 response and recovery. Therefore, he hopes that this workshop with the Ministry of Economy and Finance will help the ministry become more familiar with the key priorities of the National Strategic Plan and its relevance to the annual budget of key ministries and subnational administrations. The National Disability Strategic Plan 2019 to 2023 was prepared according to the reflections on the implementation of the previous National Disability Strategic Plan 2014 to 2018. This national plan is the basis for accelerating the implementation of the law on the protection and promotion of the rights of persons with disabilities, the development plan for policies regarding disability and the legal status of persons with disabilities, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the Decade of Persons with Disabilities in Asia and the Pacific, the Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly the fourth phase of the Royal Government of Cambodia's rectangular strategy to ensure that the lives of persons with disabilities in Cambodia are improved. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Two people were arrested by Battambang provincial authorities in connection to theft as 26 motorcycles were found in their possession, all of which are suspected to have been stolen and then sold to the two arrested individuals. EAC News reporter Srapor Kong has more details.
Battambang Provincial Police Chief Lieutenant Colonel Chiang Kim Song said that a police operation took place on Wednesday 27 April at two different target locations in Battambang City. He confirmed that a 34-year-old man living in Battambang City and a 36-year-old woman in Pailan City were arrested in the case. Currently, the Special Office is building a case to send the two suspects to the Battambang Provincial Court and move forward with legal proceedings. According to Article 399 of the Cambodian Penal Code, receiving the proceeds of theft is classified as the act of receiving, concealing, storing, or transmitting an object knowing that the object is from a crime or misdemeanor. The Penal Code also categorizes some activity as benefiting the thief, such as mediation or delivery of the object of criminals and receiving object from criminals. The two arrested individuals could face up to 2 to 5 years in prison and a fine of 4 to 10 million real. Sripokong, EAC News.
A woman was peeling palm fruit on her porch in Plegnek district and struck and killed by lightning as a storm rained through Banteay Menchay province and rain mixed through strong winds destroyed 58 houses in Malay district. Meanwhile, in Ratakiri district in Battambang province, another man was struck and killed by lightning. All of these incidents occurred on Thursday evening. EAC News reporter Darshana Gochan has more.
Police in Prenet Priya district, Banteay Menchay province, said that the woman who lost her life after being struck by lightning was 47-year-old Phal Phan, who lived in Kampong Krasang village, Phnom Liep commune. At around 3:30 p.m. on Thursday, the victim was peeling palm fruit on the porch of her house during a heavy rainstorm. Lightning struck the woman's house and caused her to become seriously injured. She died 4 hours later at 7 p.m. the same day. Over in Malay district of Banteay Menchay province, heavy winds mixed with rain destroyed 58 houses but did not cause any casualties. In Battambang province, which borders Banteay Menchay, lightning also struck and killed a 35-year-old man while he was picking cashew nuts in the rain at around 3:35 p.m. in Rukak Kiri district. The Ministry of Water Resources and Meteorology had previously announced on Wednesday, 27 April, that an increase in rainfall mixed with thunder and strong gusts of wind would occur and last until 3 May 2022. The ministry said that the situation was due to the weakening of high-pressure valleys in the Pacific and the influence of low-pressure valleys pushing from the Indian Ocean. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said after talks in Kyiv on Thursday, 28th of April, that his organisation was doing all it could to enable evacuation of the steel plant where firefighters and civilians were holed up in the city of Mariupol.
At the present moment, I can only tell you we are doing everything we can to make it happen. I'm not going to enter into any comment that could undermine that possibility, he said after meeting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The meeting with Zelensky followed talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday, 26 April, where the latter agreed in principle to UN and the International Committee for Red Cross's involvement in evacuating the Azovstal plant. Russia fired 2 missiles into Kyiv on Thursday during a visit by UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, and one hit the lower floor of a residential building, injuring at least 3 people, its mayor said.
Today, Ukraine is an epicenter of unbearable heartache and pain. I witnessed that very vividly today around Kyiv. The senseless loss of life, the massive destruction, the unacceptable violations of human rights and the laws of war. It is vital that the International Criminal Court and other UN mechanisms conduct their work so that there can be real accountability. The position of the United Nations is clear. As I said in Moscow, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a violation of its territorial integrity and of the Charter of the United Nations. This war must end, and peace must be established in line with the Charter of the United Nations and international law.
Thanks so much.
A former senior executive at Russian leader Gazprom Bank said on Thursday, 28th of April, that he fled Russia for Ukraine, hoping to take arms against Moscow's invasion, and that he believed President Vladimir Putin was leading Russia to catastrophe.
Igor Volobyev, 50, who holds a Russian passport and was until recently a vice president at Gazprom Bank, told Reuters in an interview in the capital Kyiv that he had been moved to act because of his Ukrainian roots and family. The public defection, or is it a defection, is extraordinary because of his senior role in a company that is at the heart of the Russian establishment and is chaired by Alexei Miller, the CEO of gas giant of Gazprom, who is a close Putin ally. It also illustrates the close mesh of family links between the two countries. Volobyev was born in Okhtika, in Ukraine northeastern region of Sumy, where Russian forces poured into in late February. I came here to defend my motherland because the war started in places like my hometown Okhtika. It was one of the first cities to be hit by bombing, he said. He arrived in Ukraine on March 2nd and declared at the border that he wanted to join Ukraine's territorial defense force, he said. They said we have enough of our own people with military experience, he said, adding he hopes to find a way to fight for Ukraine. He declined to elaborate on how he left Russia and managed to get to Kyiv. Checkpoints have been set up across Ukraine during the war, and it is difficult, if not almost impossible, to move around easily with Russian documents. Volobyev gave his interview on Independence Square, the spiritual home of the Euromaidan protest movement that toppled a Moscow-backed president in 2014. Russia annexed Crimea after that and backed separatists in the east. There were tank traps and sandbags on the side of the road and armed soldiers milled around. An air raid siren sounded overhead as Volobyev arrived. Few people took notice, couple posed for photographs. Volobyev described the war as a sin and was categorical in his criticism of Putin. Russia has no future. I think this country, Russia, will break up. Putin has already brought Russia to a catastrophe, he said. I'm not afraid, he added. If I was looking for safety, I wouldn't have come here. I have continued to live a well-fed life of plenty, and everything would have been well. I understood I was going to war. Russia described its action in Ukraine as a special operation aimed at degrading Kyiv's military power and protecting Russian speakers living in the east of the country. Volobyev said he had opposed the annexation of Crimea, but that he had decided for the last 8 years to choose the welfare of his family over that of Ukraine. February's invasion had made him choose Ukraine over his loved ones, he said, and he feared they could now be in danger. He declined to elaborate more about their situation or whereabouts. About Putin, I think, he needs to be judged and hung, he said.
The US House of Representatives overwhelmingly backed the legislation on Thursday, 28th of April, that will make it easier to export military equipment to Ukraine, reviving the Lend-Lease Act that helped defeat Hitler during World War II.
The yeas are 417 and the nays are...
The House passed the Ukraine Democracy Defend Lend-Lease Act of 2022 by 417 to 10, 3 weeks after it sailed through the Senate with unanimous support. It next goes to the White House for President Joe Biden to sign into law. The measure revived a World War II-era program that allowed Washington to lend or lease military equipment to U.S. allies. In this case, it will help those affected by Russian invasion, such as Poland and other Eastern European countries, as well as Ukraine. 2 months into the Russian invasion of Ukraine, members of Congress hoped the act would work as it did a decade ago, by allowing U.S. companies to quickly resupply partner nation without having to clear bureaucratic hurdle. As war rages in Ukraine, every minute matters. It's about time. This strong action can mean the difference between life saved and life lost, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said ahead of the vote. Among other provisions, the bill would allow the United States to provide equipment to Ukraine now, with just a technical requirement to pay at some later date, essentially giving it to the Kyiv government.
Let's have a look at today's finance. The CSX index is currently 529.5 points, down 1.24 points or 0.23%. The daily exchange rate is 4,046 real to the US dollar. Now let's have a look what else is happening in finance around the world. Global share rise as earnings boost, US dollar hits a 20-year high. The US dollar touched a 2-decade high against rivals on Thursday as Wall Street rallied and European shares rose from a 6-week low and strong earnings reports, offsetting gloomy US economic data. The yen dropped to a 20-year low after Bank of Japan vowed to buy unlimited amounts of 10-year bonds daily to defend its yield target. The bank's strengthening of the commitment to ultra-low interest rates sent the US dollar to a fresh high, weakening emerging markets currencies and pushing borrowing costs for US dollars in currencies derivatives markets sharply higher. Oil prices settled higher on an increased likelihood that Germany will join another European Union member states in an embargo on Russian oil, which could further tighten supplies in an already stressed global crude market. The SP 500 climbed 2.47% to end the session at 4,287.50 points. The Nasdaq gained 3.06% to 12,871.53 points, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 1.85% to 33,916.39 points. Technology stocks gained on strong earnings. Shares of Facebook parent Meta Platforms surged after the company reported a larger than expected profit on Wednesday. Apple, the world's most valuable company, and e-commerce giant Amazon both rallied ahead of the quarterly reports, though Amazon tumbled 10% in extended trade after the company forecast current quarter sales below estimates. China tech rallies as Asia shares best day in 6 weeks in tense markets. Asian shares were set for their best day in 6 weeks after Friday, led by Chinese tech stocks after reports of a possible resolution to the Sino-US audit dispute, giving investors much-needed respite from worries of global economic slowdown. Still, a key regional share index was set for the worst month in 9 as the Ukraine war and expectations for an aggressive US rate hikes these coming months have added to the anxieties, propelling the safe haven dollar to nearly 20-year peaks. Hong Kong-listed tech stocks rose as much as 10% on Friday, trading resumed after lunchtime pause. Economic players JD.com and Alibaba each rose as much as 15% and Meituan gained to 12%. All three are listed in both US and Hong Kong browsers. They are their peers' stock prices had been affected by the US moves to delist Chinese companies because Beijing restricted the US audit regulators access to their audit documents. Reports on Friday that a resolution to despite what was in sight had given the sharp gains, said Stephen Lung, Executive Director of Institutional Sales at brokerage UOB, Keihan, Hong Kong. The gains from Chinese index heavyweights sent MSCI's broadcast index of Asian Pacific shares outside Japan 1.9% higher, which would be the best day since March 17. Also helping was the positive bellwether to the top decision marketing body of Chinese Communist Party, saying China will set up a policy support to stabilize the economy and strong Wall Street after robust earnings from Facebook parent Meta Platforms had given Nasdaq a 3% higher overnight. Wall Street ended sharply higher on Thursday after a strong quarterly report by Meta Platforms lifted beaten down technology and growth stocks and offset worries about the US economy's construction in the first quarter. The Facebook parent surged 17.6% after social network reported larger than expected profit and rebound from a drop in users. Communication services and technology were among the strongest in 11 SP 500 sector indexes, jumping 4.04% and 3.89% respectively. Apple, the world's most valuable company and e-commerce giant, Amazon, both rallied more than 4% ahead of quarterly reports later in the day. In extended trade, Amazon tumbled 10% after company forecast current quarter sales below. Wall Street estimates investments have been dumping high growth stocks for weeks due to worries of inflation, rising interest rates and potential economic slowdown. Even with Thursday's strong gain, the tech-heavy Nasdaq was down almost 10% in the month of April, on track for its deepest one-month decline since March 2020. The SP 500 has gained or lost 2% or more in a day, sometimes 32 so far in 2022 compared to 24 such days in 2021. The US economy unexpectedly contracted in the first quarter as COVID-19 cases surge again and government pandemic relief money is dropped. That's all the latest in finance. Tune in Monday for more details. Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Wednesday, the 27th of April.
A UN report on Tuesday called for urgent action to avert a sand crisis, including a ban on beach extraction as demand surges to 50 billion tons a year amid population growth and urbanization. Sand is the most exploited natural resource in the world after water, but its use is largely ungoverned, meaning we are consuming it faster than it can be replaced by geological processes that take hundreds of thousands of years, the UN Environment Programme report says. UNEP's Pascal Peduzzi, who coordinated the report written by 22 authors, said global consumption for use in glass, concrete, and construction materials has tripled over 2 decades to reach 50 billion tons a year, or about 17 kilograms per person each day, which is harming rivers and coastlines and even wiping out small islands. In a Sri Lankan river, sand removal had reversed the water flow, meaning that ocean water was heading inland and bringing saltwater crocodiles with it, he told journalists. Demand is now seen as shifting to Africa, where villagers often remove sand from beaches to build growing cities. In some cases, this can make coastlines more vulnerable to the impact of climate change, such as more powerful storms, the report said. Among the report's recommendations were a ban on beach extraction and the creation of an international standard for marine dredging that can harm ocean biodiversity. It also called for reducing demand by reusing sand from recycled materials like concrete and mining tailings instead of using naturally occurring sand. Peduzzi, who coordinated the report written by 22 authors, said that some of the impacts of overexploitation were already being felt. In the Mekong River, the longest in Southeast Asia, sand extraction was causing the delta to sink, leading to the salinization of previously fertile lands.
A Singapore court on Tuesday, the 26th of April, dismissed a latest-ditch legal challenge by a member of a Malaysian drug trafficker on death row, paving the way for execution carried out on Wednesday as planned. Nagatharan Diglingham, 34, has been in death row for more than a decade for trafficking 44 grams or 1.5 ounce of heroin to Singapore, which has some of the world's toughest narcotic laws. His lawyers have filed multiple appeals against his execution on the grounds that he was an intellectual disability. After the court delivered its decision, Diglingham and his family reached through the gap in the glass screen to grasp each other's hands tightly as they wept. He cries of Ma could be heard around the courtroom. Nanglathan's case has attracted international attention, with a group of United Nations experts and British billionaire Richard Branson joining Malaysia's Prime Minister and human rights activists to urge Singapore to commute his death sentence. His lawyers and activists have said Nanglathan's IQ was found to be at 69, a level recognised as intellectual disability. However, the courts found he knew that what he was doing at the time of his crime and ruled there was no admissible evidence showing any decline in his mental condition. Around 300 people also attended a candlelight vigil in Singapore Park on Monday, the 25th of April, to protest against Dingleham's execution and the other Malaysian on death row in Singapore, Dutch Mahathir Qatar, who were convicted for trafficking 45 grams of diflurfene.
But this is what the families think about and yearn for.
Writers under deadline go to Tokyo Manuscript Writing Cafe with the understanding that they can't leave until their work is done. Recently opened in April in Western Tokyo, the clean, well-lit place has 10 seats reserved for writers, editors, manga artists, and anybody else grappling with the written word and deadlines. Upon entering it, customers will be handed a slip of paper on which they need to write down their names, writing goals, and the amount of time they need to finish. The cafe staff will hold customers accountable by checking in with them on their progress. They can choose from mild, normal, and hard, 3 levels of progress check. Customers who choose mild will only get a verbal confirmation when they pay at the counter, and people who choose normal will get a progress check every hour. Those who decide to go hard on themselves will feel silent pressure from staff who will stand frequently behind them. Cafe owner Takuya Kawai said this strict rule could help people improve concentration. It went viral on social media and people are saying that the rules are scary or that it feels like you're being watched from behind. But actually, instead of monitoring customers, I'm here to support them. I would like everyone to finish their work, said the 52-year-old Kawai, who also a writer himself. Inspired by a famous Japanese tale for children, the restaurant of many orders, which inspired a bizarre restaurant setting up a specific instruction for customers before they enter the restaurant. Kawai says he aimed to create a space where people will feel tense at first, but gradually relax and be able to focus on their work. Unlike normal cafes where customers have a wide range of drinks on the menu to choose from, the cafe offers unlimited access to self-service coffee and tea bags, and food options are not available. Instead, it's installed with a high-speed Wi-Fi and charging port at every seat. Customers are charged 130 yen for the first 30 minutes, and then 300 yen for every hour. They will not be able to pay until they finish the work they declare upon entering. According to Kawai, despite several people having to stay longer than the cafe operating hours, all customers has completed their goals and checked out safely. With warm brick walls and a collection of fine liquor at the counter, the cafe was originally intended to be a live streaming studio, where guests would be invited to talk show with an alcoholic beverage before an alcoholic ban during the COVID-19 pandemic, during Kawai's plant. Now, Kawai said he has found a new meaning for this cafe with more people coming here to write. I don't know what kind of work might be born here, but I'm proud that I was able to offer my support so that scripts that were written here could be published to the world.
Now for a look at the news making international headlines this Thursday, the 28th of April.
Peruvian police have entered a huge Chinese-owned Las Bambas copper mine in an attempt to evict an indigenous community that has established a camp near the open pit, forcing it to halt operations, a community leader and a government official said on Wednesday, April 27th. Las Bambas is owned by China MMG Ltd 1208.HK, supplies 2% of global copper. Residents of the indigenous Fuerabamba community entered the mine on April 14th, demanding what they say is their ancestral lands. The mine halted production a week later. After being asked by a Reuters reporter on how long they stay in the camp, an identified indigenous farmer said, "Until they comply with the commitments they have made to us. We are going to stay until they comply, until they give us work." Reuters reported on Tuesday, April 26th that Las Bambas was planning to forcefully evict the community on Wednesday. A government source with direct knowledge of the matter, who asked not to be named, told Reuters police had begun entering the mine. Peru's government declared a state of emergency in the area early on Wednesday, a move that suspends civil liberties such as the right to assembly and protest. The Fuerabamba community was resettled around a decade ago to make way for Las Bambas, one of the world's largest copper mines. The mine has battled against repeated protests and road blockades that have at times forced it to halt production. Getting production started again at Las Bambas would add to global supply, potentially dampening prices, though the mine has faced recurring disruption from impoverished local communities demanding higher financial contributions from the mine.
From the Galapagos tortoise and the Komodo dragon of the Indonesian islands, from the West African's rhinoceros viper and to India's gaharel, are threatened with extinction. Research said on Wednesday, the 27th of April, in the first comprehensive global status assessment for reptiles. The study examined 10,196 reptile species, including turtles, crocodiles, lizards, snakes, and tarantula, the only surviving member of the lingua dated back for more than 2 million years. They found that 21% of species are critical endangered or vulnerable to extinct as defined by the International Union of Conservation of Nature, the global authority of the status of species. They also identified 31 species that have already gone extinct. Many reptiles are being pushed to brink, the researchers said, by factors simulating imperiling of the world, of the other land, vegetables. Many reptiles are being pushed to the brink, the researchers said, by factors similarly imperiling the world, other land, vertebrates, amphibians, birds, mammals, namely desertification of agriculture, logging and development, urban encroachment, and hunting by people, climate change and invisible species.
All of those 20% of reptiles that are threatened today go extinct. We will lose accumulation of 15 billion years of evolution that's led to these fascinating creatures that we see around us today.
Previous status reports that 41% of amphibian species, 25% of mammal species, and 14% of bird species were threatened with extinction. Species status assessments consider distribution, ambience threats, and population threats. About 27% of reptile species restricted to forested habitats were found to be threatened with extinction compared to 14% of species inhabiting arid habitats. Some reptiles were found to be doing just fine. Australia's saltwater crocodile, the world's largest reptile, is listed in the category for least concern about extinction. Its croc cousin, the gharial, on the other hand, is critically endangered. Among some other well-known reptiles, the Komodo dragon, the world's largest lizard, is endangered. The king cobra, the world's longest venomous snake, is vulnerable. The leatherback and the largest sea turtle is vulnerable. The Galapagos marine iguana is vulnerable, and various Galapagos turtle species range from vulnerable to extinct. Several hotspots for reptile risk were documented. In the Caribbean, for example, the Jamaican rock iguana and the lizard called the blue-tongued gallywasp are critical endangered. In West Africa, Peret's mountain camelon is endangered, and the rhinoceros viper is vulnerable. In Madagascar, the Namaraka leaf camelon is critical endangered. In Southeast Asia, the big-hearted turtle is critically endangered.
Species are declining at a rapid rate. Some estimates 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more than the background rate of extinction that normally happens on the planet. So we're at a really critical time in our, in Earth's history.
Among the most seriously threatened reptiles is the Chapman's pygmy chalamon, a small lizard inhabiting low evaluation rainforests in Malawi that has been considered possibly extinct, but now has been found in a few forest fragments.
A near 3-century-old instrument launched as a Leonardo da Vinci of violin could fetch as much as 10 million euros when it is auctioned next month. The French house overseeing the sale said, crafted in 1736 by Reverend Italian luthier Giuseppe Guarneri, it is owned by virtuoso Regis Pasquia, and its sound has graced concert halls around the world. There are many violins, but this one is like selling a Rembrandt, a Goya, or even a Leonardo da Vinci painting, said Sophie Perrin of the Agate auction house near Paris. There are many violins, but this one is like selling a Rembrandt, a Goya, or even a Leonardo da Vinci painting, said Sophie Perrin of the Agate auction house near Paris. The maple-back instrument is one of about 150 made by Guarneri, the quality and longevity of whose output rival that of Antonio Stradivari, but who was far less prolific than his compatriot and contemporary. Met at the peak of Guarneri's career, it was bought more than 20 years ago by Pasqua, who gave a concert with it the following day without even practicing on it. Perrin said for him, this instrumental was perfect. He has since played it at prestigious venues including Carnegie Hall in New York and the Opéra Garnier in Paris. The violin will go up for auction on June 3rd following a 3-day viewing. Its base price estimate is 4 to 4.5 million euro, but Perrin said it could sell for up to 10 million.
Now, for a look at the news making international headlines this Friday, the 29th of April.
Malnourished children are flooding into the pediatric ward of the main hospital in the Ethiopian city of Gode as the worst drought for 40 years has forced many families to leave their home to search for aid. Nemo Mohammed, a 35-year-old mother of 9 who is about to have another baby, now lives with her entire family in a displaced people's camp in the city located in Ethiopia's southeastern Somali region. More than 10,000 people are getting aid there, most of them women and children. On Tuesday, April 27th, Mohammed told Reuters the drought had devastated her family, causing them to lose their home. Her family of 11 is now living in makeshift houses made of sticks and covered with plastic sheets or clothes. Adults at the camp are regularly missing meals to ensure children are fed, Mohammed said. At Gode General Hospital, Reuters saw around a dozen malnourished children being treated. Pediatrician Mohammed Armin said that numbers started to spike around 5 months ago. Armin said the hospital has treated 140 malnourished children, 4 of whom had died. He added that this figure does not include those in the local displaced people's camp. Last year, the hospital received 188 malnourished children, but now they saw that in a single month, Armin said, adding that many families were arriving with several malnourished children. The Horn of Africa region is facing the driest conditions in more than 4 decades after 3 consecutive rainy seasons failed. According to the United Nations World Food Programme, the WFP said around 15 million people need food in the Horn of Africa, a figure that could rise to 20 million by the end of the year. Claire Neville, spokeswoman for WFP, said the drought was the latest in a series of climate shocks that have compounded the food insecurity situation in the region.
The number of Cubans leaving their homeland has soared in recent months. The migration, often via irregular and dangerous routes over land and sea, have sparked new tensions between the island's communist-run government and the United States, the principal designation for Cuban migrants. The long-time advisories held high-level talks focused on crisis for the first time in 4 years in April. In November, Nicaragua, a close political ally to Cuba, waived its visa requirements for Cubans, saying the move is intended to promote commercial exchange, tourism, humanitarian family relations. But among Cubans, a flight to Nicaragua is now seen as a path to least residential for those seeking to escape a grinding economic crisis on the island that has led to food and medical shortages since last July, the largest anti-government protest since Cuban leader Fidel Castro in 1959 resolution. The coronavirus pandemic and tightened US sanctions under former President Donald Trump have aggravated the crisis, contributing to the glamour to leave the island. Nearly 80,000 Cubans have been apprehended at the US border with Mexico in the last 6 months since October 2021. In March alone, more than 32,000 Cubans were picked up, nearly twice that of the previous month, according to US Customs and Border Protection statistics. If the rate holds, the current Nicaragua-driven migration would outpace that of the 1980 Morale boat lift when Castro opened Cuba's ports into US vessels. An estimated 125,000 people left the island. The United States have long given preferential treatment to Cuban migrants arriving to the border, a vestige of Cold War-era policy when communist Cuba was closely allied with the US arch-rival, the Soviet Union. Even today, few Cubans once across the border in Mexico are turned back, to US statistics show. The Biden administration, however, have recently said it is working with recent allies to stem the reasoning numbers of migrants arriving the south border, including Cubans. Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, and Panama have recently implemented or announced measures requiring transit visas for the Cubans passing through their airports en route to Nicaragua, increasing Cubans who saw their travel plans frustrated. Those affected have protested at embassies across Havana. Yes, in 1984, 1994, 1995 and 2017, those agreements remain in effect but modified under former US President Barack Obama in January 2017. That accord commits the US states to ensure legal migrations to the Republic of Cuba with a minimum of 20,000 personnel annually. The United States, which scaled back embassy staff in Havana following unexplained health issues in 2017, has since fallen far short of the commitment but has promised to speed up visa processing overall for Cubans and resume some consular services in Havana in May. The same 2017 agreement commits Cuba to receiving back all Cuban nationals found to have tried irregularly to enter or remain in the country, the violation of United States law. The Cuban government has not accepted deportations of Cuban nationals via charter or commercial flight from the US from the last 6 months. A US government source acknowledged the matter, told reporters. Both countries have painted in April high-level migration talks in a positive light, though they have not struck firm agreements. A senior Biden administration official called the conversations the beginning of a good dialogue, while Cuba's foreign minister said they were without a doubt a positive sign.
A Dutch German Air and Missile Defense Task Force deploys Patriot surface-to-air missile system near Sliak Air Base, Slovakia in April to reinforce defense capability on NATO eastern flank following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Patriot system will contribute to the NATO integrated air and missile defense system, a network of interconnected sensors, command and control assets, and weapons. This ground-based defensive system will strengthen the integrated shielding of NATO borders and will protect Slovakia from missile threat. NATO integrated air missile defense is an essential continuous mission in peacetime, crisis, and conflict, safeguarding and protecting aliens' territory, population, and forces against any air and missile threat and attack. It is an essential element of NATO deterrence and defense. Colonel George Silver, commander of the German Air Missile Defense Wing 1 and Task Force commander in Slovakia. The Patriot system is used for the protection of our own troops, for the protection of population, for the protection of city, of critical infrastructure that can be shipyard, it can be nuclear power plant over which we spread a protective belt with the Patriot system and make sure that there are no unauthorized aircraft, missiles endangering this protected object and therefore ensure the security on the ground for these troops and objects.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Formula One champion Max Verstappen won the sprint to pole position at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix on Saturday, 23rd of April, but Ferrari's Charles Leclerc stretched his lead overall to 40 points. The Dutch driver had already secured an official pole for the record books in a wet Friday qualifying for the sprint by Saturday's result made the concrete as well as bagging him 8 points. Leclerc had seized the lead at the start and held it through the initial safety car period before Verstappen made up for his poor getaway and passed the Monster whose tyres were fading fast with a late move around the outside. Ferrari's Carlos Sainz moved to the second in the championship standings after a race the 10th place to 4th, behind Red Bull's Sergio Perez Maz in a 100k race over 21 laps in Molla. Vesperton, who retired in the first two races of the season, is now 45 points behind Leseric. The first sprint of the season saw points awarded to the top 8 rather than the podium places than it was the case last year. McLaren's Lado Norris and Daniel Ricciardo finished 5th and 6th, with Valtteri Bottas 7th. For Alfa Romeo's Kevin Magnussen banked in the final point as Haas started in 4th place. Champions Mercedes had an afternoon to forget, with George Russell finishing 11th and losing 2nd place in the standings, while 7th place world champion Lewis Hamilton was 14th, 1 place lower than where he started. Manigusi's Haas team made Mick Schumacher ensure that the start in the 10th place with the chance of securing first points. The safety car was brought out on lap 2 when Alfa Romeo's Chinese rookie Chen Yuzhu and Alfa Tauri's Percy Carsley got in a tangle. Zhu crashed out and will start last on Sunday, while Gasly ended up 17th ahead of Williams pair and Alex Albon and Nicholas Lafferty. Kyle Ropavina clinched victory over the Croatian rally on Sunday the 24th of April as Finn overturned Ott Tanaka's late lead.
Rovanpera had led from the start, but Hyundai Tanak took a narrow 1.4 second lead in the penultimate speed test on his softer Pirelli tyres. Rovanpera Toyota Gior Yaris had the edge in the last 4th power stake as he clawed back the deficit before powering home to victory, 4.3 seconds ahead of Tanak. Rovanpera, who also won the previous rally in Sweden, extended his overall championship lead to 29 points over Terrari Newell of Hyundai, who finished the Croatian leg 3rd after he lost time crashing into a ditch. Next up is the Portuguese rally from May 19 to 22nd, the 4th stop on the 2022 World Rally Championship calendar.
A pair of death-defying pilots only partially succeeded in their attempt to complete the first ever mid-air plane swap in Phoenix, Arizona.
Cousins Luke Aiken and Daddy Farrington each piloted a small Cessna 182 to an altitude of 14,000 feet, put their planes into a controlled nosedive and jumped out. Aiken successfully swapped planes, but Farrington was unable to enter the plane he was approaching. He skydived into a safe landing. The second plane's safety mechanism were then activated, but the plane was damaged. Neither of the pilots nor anybody else was injured.
Hey man, that's why we're here where we are. Yep. Everybody's safe. Parachute system worked just like it was supposed to. Andy's fine. Yeah, he's fine. Yeah, he said he's like I could hear him talking to me in free fall. Yeah.
I mean, we proved that it was possible. I mean, we're pushing boundaries out here. And what's great is I jumped from one, I got in the other one, we landed, I landed safely. Andy landed safely under parachute. The plane landed under a parachute. All of our safety protocols worked.
Yeah, I mean, we were there. All the numbers matched up and everything like that. Everything should have been good to go. For some reason, it wasn't that way. But at the end of the day, we're both here. We're both good to go. Everybody's safe and sound. And I guess that's the important part.
Ukrainian Youth League soccer player Alan Ozzy on Monday, April the 26th, said he was excited to help his war-torn country through a charity match with Borussia Dortmund, where they currently play as a guest player. On Tuesday, 26th of April, Borussia Dortmund and Dynamo Kiev will play a charity match in Dortmund Single Inga Park Stadium, with tickets processed going to Ukrainian refugees. It is very difficult for me to be concentrating on football, on the match, on the trainings, but I'm a professional. I will get out tomorrow to give every best, Ozzy told journalists. Before Ozzy fled the war, he played for Viras Ravine and loaned for Dynamo Kiev. 2 months ago, he came to Germany and joined Dortmund as a guest player. I'm very grateful to the club, the city. It is a very special moment for me to be able to get onto the pitch tomorrow in a Borussia Dortmund kit, Ozzy said. While now safe in Germany and away from the war, Ozzy says he maintains regular contact with people in Ukraine, many of whom are still going through very difficult situations, including some of the front lines. 2 of my best friends are in the front line. I am really in touch with them, but I am trying to contact them every day to see if they're alive. It is very difficult for me and my families, for my friends, because of them, every day could be last.
Якщо я можу допомогти
Ireland's undisputed world light champion Katie Taylor and Puerto Rico's Amanda Serrero on Tuesday the 26th of April faced on top of the Empire State Building in New York ahead of the April 30 bout. They are the first female fighters to headline a card at Madison Square Garden.
The first but not the last, We're going to show you have 2 pound for pound great females going in there, and we're going to show that we deserve this, we deserve the spotlight. We're going to show it, we're going to sell out the garden. So who said that they don't want to see women fight? You see, tune in Saturday night and we're going to change your minds.
Taylor, 20 wins, no losses, 6 KOs, a 35-year-old gold medalist from 2012 London Olympics, will be putting all our lightweight bouts on the line for the 6th time since winning them in 2019. Brooklyn-based Scenario, 42 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, 30 KOs, whose sister Cindy lost to Taylor by a unanimous decision in 2018, already has an unrevealed legacy in the sport as a 7th weight world champion.
This is history in the making. This is an iconic moment that will change the face of the sport forever. And I think this fight will inspire a whole new generation of female fighters and athletes. But beyond that, in order to sustain women's sport, in order to sustain women's boxing, it needs to stand alone on its own merits. And I think the greatest thing about this fight is, we all know it's the biggest female fight of all time, but it stands as one of the biggest fights in boxing today. The undisputed lightweight world champion against a 7-division world champion.
Scenario 33 enters the bout in sparkling form after knocking out Daniela Bermudez last March, dominating Eunice Masado in August and overpowering Miriam Cortez in 2 separate cards co-starring YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul. Scenario signed with Paul's most valuable promotions last year. Dortmund striker Erling Haaland got the ball rolling on Tuesday the 26th of April as his team faced off against Domino Kliev for a charity match to raise money for Ukraine.
According to the Bundesliga website, the game raised around 40,000 euros in support of the victims of the war. The Ukrainian team is touring Europe where they are raising money and keeping the focus on the ongoing Russian invasion of their country. This is the way how we can support our country, so we know that all the money from selling of tickets will go to Ukrainian government, Ukrainian people. So I came from Berlin to support my country as well, said Daniel Bedrain from Kyiv. Katerina Shilk, also from Kyiv, said, "It is a very, very strange feeling to be here and trying to live normal life when in my country there's war, while I want to support my team from Ukraine and to support my people." Kyiv won 3-2 against Dortmund in front of a crowd of some 35,000 fans.
The Brazilian Football Confederation named its first female director on Tuesday the 26th of April, appointing architect Luisa Rosa to the role that includes oversight of new construction projects.
Rosa worked on the organizing committees for the 2014 World Cup in Brazil and the 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games held in Rio de Janeiro. She was also involved in architecture projects for this year's World Cup in Qatar. Rosa, who's 33, will be tasked with creating 15 development centers with money earned by Brazil when it hosted the 2014 World Cup. She will also oversee an expansion of the Granja Comary headquarters, where the Brazilian national side prepares for international matches and World Cups, said the Globe Sport website. CBF President Ednaldo Rodriguez said Rosa's promotion to Director of Assets would act as an incentive to others. Her appointment comes almost a year after the previous CBF president was removed from office by the organization's ethics committee following allegations that he sexually harassed female employees. Rogerio Caboclo has denied the accusations.
4 Argentinian friends will cycle 10,500 kilometres from South Africa to Qatar to support their country the World Cup in November. The incentive will also lead to 10,500 new trees being planted in their homeland.
Lucas Ledesma, Leandro Blanco Payi, Silvio Gatti, and Sebastian Rodriguez from the province of Cordoba will start cycling on May 15th from Cape Town to Doha, a journey that will cross 15 countries on 2 continents. We will be pedaling 10,500 kilometers, crossing through Africa and the Middle East, passing through 15 countries, Ledesma, a 34-year-old physical education teacher, told Reuters. It will take us approximately 6 months to arrive and witness the 2022 World Cup, he added. Argentina is scheduled to play their first match at this year's tournament on November 22nd against Saudi Arabia at the Lusail Stadium. Ledesma has previous experience in this type of crossing, as well as cycling to Brazil to attend the 2014 World Cup and also to Russia for the 2018 finals. He has traveled through various countries on 2 wheels to cheer on his compatriots at the 2018 Rio Olympics and the 2015 Copa America in Chile. For his 2022 adventure, he will be joined by a documentary maker, a writer, and a travel agent. There is planning for months, sitting down to find out what is happening in each country. There is a deep investigation, said 31-year-old writer Payi. Traveling by bicycle is something beautiful because we don't skip anywhere. We feel the journey, each little tree, each house, each family, kilometer by kilometer, he added enthusiastically. Besides watching the matches, the trip aims to help the environment. Each kilometer traveled will be marked by the planting of a tree in the mountains of Cordoba, located about 600 kilometers northwest of the country's capital, Buenos Aires.
Spanish cyclist Edith Paredes saw the funny side after crashing as he celebrated what he thought was a victory on the opening stage of the Tour Hellas on Tuesday, the 27th of April. The Caja Rural Sergios RGA rider's saddle appeared to slip from under him as he crossed the finishing line, leaving the 34-year-old sliding along the ground while other riders avoid crashing into him. To make matters worse, he then discovered that he was in fact second. Aaron Gate of New Zealand, Bolton Aquarius Black spoke, having crossed the line nearly 2 minutes in front of the Paredes. Gate had been part of an earlier breakaway group that Paredes had thought he had been caught. On finding out that he had finished second, Paredes joked that at least he would have a nice finishing line photograph for his newly born son. It's been found and now it will be sold. After decades of searching, one of Dorothy's dresses from the classic film The Wizard of Oz has been located.
The director of popular culture at Bonhams US, Helen Hall, explained it was donated to the Catholic University of America in 1973 by an actress called Mercedes McCambridge. It's remained at the school with Father Hartke, who was head of the drama department there until the 80s when he retired. And then it disappeared, and the university spent many years looking for it. Fast forward to COVID, and a retired professor was going through some boxes in his office, and lo and behold, there was the dress. The auction house said MGM didn't keep records, but they did know that 5 dresses have surfaced since the film was released. 1 was lost in a fire, and now 4 blue and white dresses remain and only 2 with the white blouse. The pre-sale auction estimate is $800,000 to $1.2 million. We sold another version of this dress back in 2015 that made $1.5 million, said Helen Hall. The movie artifact will be part of the company's biannual Classic Hollywood sale in Los Angeles on May 24th. Who was head of the drama department there until the 80s when he retired.
The bodice has a very distinctive pattern in the gingham that we're actually able to match to a scene in the film. So Judy Garland wears this as Dorothy in the scene in the witch's castle, when the witch imprisons her and turns over the timer counting down towards when she's going to kill her. There's some wear on the shoulders to the blouse. The dress itself is in wonderful condition. The colours are still really strong. It's still got that nice blue and white gingham. But at the back, sometime in the 70s, someone snuck into the office of Father Hartke at the university who had the dress and snipped a little souvenir out of the fabric. So there's a little bit missing at the back. In the back, there's a label with Judy Garland's name on it, with a number which ties it to the production. The hook and eye fastening at the back is very distinctive and exactly the same as the other examples I've seen. And in this side here, there's a little secret pocket where Judy Garland kept her handkerchief. So that scene where she wipes the tears of the cowardly lion, she pulls a handkerchief from her pocket and wipes the tears. So that's a little secret pocket. Yeah, no, that's just for display purposes. The Catholic University of America who own the dress, and as Mercedes McCambridge originally intended with her donation to the school, they are selling it and using the proceeds to create a new film acting program at the Catholic University in Washington.
I didn't even know what you meant by that. I mean, like, something like protected that.
As part of an official intensive to beautify Baghdad, an Iraq artist decorates the capital streets of colourful murals, including portraits of cultural figures.
Putting the final touches on a mural depicting a well-known Iraqi poet, artist Vigdan Al-Majid said her works both aimed at beautifying the capital and increasing people's knowledge of personalities that marked Iraqi society.
We beautify some places, but with an awareness that this is different from previous beautification projects. They used to focus on landscapes like marshes, landscapes that people are used to seeing. But here the idea is different. These are important personalities that had an impact on society.
With their bright and warm colors, the murals include portraits of painters and poets. Some figures on the murals were not known by everyone among the general public, Majid said, adding that her paintings triggered curiosities.
These paintings are very important. They give a special colour and taste to the streets of Baghdad. And we've got to know many artists, writers and personalities that seem not as to be famous, but are famous in the field, and are very, very, really happy about these paintings because they were part of our daily life.
Majid added that before, she and her artist colleagues were primarily doing exhibitions and thus mostly had impact on other artists and students. But now she believes that her artwork can have an impact on everyone and on society as a whole.
We also started to paint Ali Al-Wardi, Max Weber, Picasso, Edward Salim. The mayor of Baghdad chose Iraqi personalities and international ones as well as Arab ones, because he did not want Iraqi people's awareness to be limited to local Iraqi personalities only. He wanted to spread a more international awareness, so he worked on enhancing Iraqis' awareness.
In the framework of this initiative by the mayor of Baghdad to beautify the city, Majid said that she already completed about 15 murals in Baghdad, with each taking her about 4 days to complete.
Now let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect the next 2 days. Thanks for watching the weekly Roundup here on EAC News Channel. More from the EAC News team on Daily Roundup on Monday night at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.